Chapter 262. Congratulations, my lord. Congratulations, my lord. The reincarnation heavy cavalry will definitely dominate the world. Zhao Yunjing happily bowed and said. Both Guo Yi and Zhao Yun knew what savage beasts were. Guo Yi and Zhao Yun also knew about the barbaric rhinos that Yi Chen mentioned. They were super mounts that were tailor-made for the heavy cavalry. Now, a herd of barbaric rhinos had submitted to Yi Chen. As long as they were tamed by the divine beast-taming skill, a fierce cavalry would appear. By then, the combat strength of the Samsara city would skyrocket. On the battlefield, once the cavalry with barbaric rhinos as their mounts charged, no one would dare to stop them. No one would dare to stop them. Hearing Guo Yi and Zhao Yun's congratulations, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. He then looked at Guo Yi and said, Feng Shao, put up the notice. Tell the people not to go near so that they won't startle the barbaric rhinos. Yes, my lord. My lord. When Guo Yi heard this, he nodded heavily and bowed in response. What Yi Chen said was indeed very important. Savage beasts weren't kind herbivores. They were violent. Although they submitted to Yi Chen, they hadn't been tamed yet. They would be hostile to anyone other than Yi Chen. The slightest provocation could make them explode. The barbaric rhino's huge body and amazing strength were not something that the people of the Samsara city could resist. Even the generals couldn't resist them unless they killed the barbaric rhinos on the spot. However, the savage rhinoceros's defense and vitality were astonishing. If one wanted to kill a savage rhinoceros, one would not be able to do it without extremely strong martial strength. Yi Chen looked at Zhao Yun and said, Tell the merchants to leave the merchants. Although the barbaric rhinos will appear on the battlefield, it's not a good time to expose them. Yi Chen did this to keep it a secret. He didn't want Zhang Jiao to know that there were savage rhinos in the Samsara city. He didn't want to take precautions in advance. Yes, my lord. My lord. Zhao Yun heard this and immediately bowed in response. Right at this time, Dian Xiong and Zhao Heng walked in, and the moment they entered the room, they bowed in unison. Greetings, lord. Yi Chen nodded, then looked at Zhao Heng and asked, Is everything ready? My lord, the Samsara city is rich in resources and people are eager to sign up. They are all waiting outside the Castellan mansion. Zhao Heng heard Yi Chen's question and hurriedly bowed. His words were full of emotion. Because he carried out Yi Chen's orders, the results were surprisingly good. When the people heard Zhao Heng say that Yi Chen attached great importance to this backward village, they all eagerly signed up. There was not a single family that did not want to go. Zhao Heng simply picked families that did not have any elderly or young at home. Soon, he had gathered 500 families. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but smile. He then nodded and said, Very good. Let them in. The portal can only last for one day. Let them in early to avoid any unforeseen event. Yes, my lord. Zhao Heng bowed in response. With that, he went out to call the people and soldiers into the Castellan mansion. Guo Yi and Zhao Yun looked at Yi Chen and bowed in unison. My lord, this lowly subordinate will take his leave. Yi Chen nodded, then said, Good. After this is done, if you want to go to the island to take a look, you can go there directly. But Feng Shao, don't go alone. Go with Yun Zheng. Yi Chen said this for Guo Yi's safety. After all, Guo Yi was a military counselor and did not have any martial arts skills. Although the wild rhinos had submitted to Yi Chen, they would not be interested in anyone other than Yi Chen. Yes, my lord. Guo Yi and Zhao Yun smiled in unison, then bowed and walked out of the Castellan mansion. When they passed by Dian Xiong, the three smiled and nodded to each other. It was obvious that the three of them got along well, because there was not the slightest trace of politeness on their faces. When Yi Chen saw this, he smiled. The relationship between his subordinates was harmonious. As the lord, Yi Chen also saved a lot of effort. Dian Xiong, I found a mount for you. I think you will like it. Yi Chen looked at Dian Xiong and said with a smile, My lord, there are mounts on the island? When Dian Xiong heard this, he was stunned and asked. At this moment, Dian Xiong did not know the details of the island. He only came here because he heard from Zhao Heng that Yi Chen was going to the island to build a subsidiary village and bring 10,000 soldiers. He hurriedly followed to avoid any dangers on the island. Not only that, there are quite a few of them. However, the mount I found for you is one of a kind. Yi Chen nodded and said. When Dian Xiong heard this, he was stunned. Then, he bowed in ecstasy and said, This lowly general thanks my lord for the gift. Dian Xiong was a military general, a top-class historical military general. He valued mounts and weapons the most. Now that Yi Chen said that he found a mount for him, and it was one of a kind, how could Dian Xiong not be excited? How could he not be excited? Although the mount was prepared for you, it still needs to be tamed by a beast tamer before you can use it. Yi Chen looked at Dian Xiong's excited expression and said with a smile, My lord, what kind of mount is it that it needs a beast tamer to tame it? When Dian Xiong heard this, he was stunned and asked in astonishment, Savage Rhinoceros King. Yi Chen said with a smile. Dian Xiong was stunned. No matter how he thought about it, he never thought that Yi Chen would prepare such a mount for him. Dian Xiong knew about the savage rhinoceros and knew how ferocious it was. And now Yi Chen said that he had prepared a savage rhinoceros king for him. How could Dian Xiong not be stunned? However, Dian Xiong quickly regained his senses. His eyes lit up and he said, My lord, there is no need for a beast tamer to tame it. This general is willing to give it a try. When Dian Xiong learned of the savage rhinoceros' existence, he had thought of getting a savage rhinoceros as a mount. Unfortunately, he never found one. This was because savage rhinoceros were very rare on the continent. Now that a savage rhinoceros king had appeared, Dian Xiong naturally wouldn't allow a beast tamer to tame it before using it. This was because the savage rhinoceros king would lose a lot of its wildness after being tamed. This would affect its might. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned. He then said, Since Dian Xiong is so ambitious, how can I, as the Lord, stop him? However, savage rhinoceros are ferocious and aggressive. Using weapons won't make them submit. Do you understand? My lord, this general knows about this matter. Please be at ease, this general is confident. Dian Xiong nodded heavily and replied, Good. When we go to the island later, you will go and subdue that savage rhinoceros king. When Yi Chen heard this, he laughed and said, Yes, my lord. My lord. When Dian Xiong heard this, he was overjoyed and bowed. At this moment, 10,000 soldiers lined up and entered the city lord's mansion. After greeting them, they walked into the transportation portal. After them were the 500 households of Reincarnation City. There were a total of 3,200 people. Most of them were young and strong. Because they had to participate in the construction of the subsidiary villages and log trees, only young and strong people were suitable. Chapter 263. After everyone entered the portal, Yi Chen led Zhao Heng and Dian Xiong towards the portal. Yi Chen opened his eyes as the dizziness disappeared. At this moment, the citizens and soldiers of Samsara City bowed and said, Greetings, my lord. Yi Chen nodded with a smile and led Zhao Heng and Dian Xiong to the place where the rhinoceroses were found. There was an open space and a lake. There was a spring in the lake that could provide fresh water for the future subsidiary villages of Samsara City. This was also the source of water for the rhinoceroses on the island. This was the ocean. There was no fresh water. Both humans and beasts would die. When they arrived at the rhinoceroses that Yi Chen had knocked out had already woken up. Seeing Yi Chen arrive, the savage rhinoceroses king and the rhinoceroses all knelt down. The rhinoceroses lowered their heads to the ground, expressing their allegiance to Yi Chen. Zhao Heng's eyes widened when he saw the rhinoceroses. He didn't know that there were rhinoceroses here. Of course, what he didn't know was that the rhinoceroses that didn't look like good people had actually submitted to Yi Chen. In the next second, Zhao Heng's face was filled with pride. He was proud to be able to follow a lord like Yi Chen. Yi Chen looked at the savage rhinoceroses king and pointed at Dian Xiong. He said, "This is my general. You will be his mount in the future." Moo. When the savage rhinoceroses king heard this, it immediately looked at Dian Xiong and let out a disdainful roar. When Yi Chen saw this, he couldn't help but smile. He then looked at Dian Xiong and said with a smile, "Did you see that? It's not convinced. Dian Xiong, it's up to you." "Don't worry, my lord. I will definitely convince it." Dian Xiong looked at the savage rhinoceroses king's huge body and said with shining eyes, "Good." Yi Chen laughed and said. Dian Xiong walked towards the savage rhinoceroses king. The savage rhinoceroses king looked at Dian Xiong with disdain. In the next second, the man and the bull rushed together. The wild rhinoceros king wanted to kill Dian Xiong, but Dian Xiong was not only agile, he was also very fierce. He punched the wild rhinoceros king again and again. Bang! 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 However, the wild rhinoceros king's skin was thick and it wasn't afraid of Dian Xiong's ferocious fists for a while. Seeing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He then looked at Zhao Heng and said, "If we can't decide the winner here, let's go over there and build the subsidiary village first." "Yes, my lord." Zhao Heng nodded heavily. He then bowed and replied. After that, he glanced at the battle between Dian Xiong and the wild rhinoceros king. After that, he followed Yi Chen towards the lakeside. There were a lot of wild rhinoceroses. They had all submitted to Yi Chen and received Yi Chen's order not to attack humans. So when Yi Chen passed by, they all moved aside and didn't attack Zhao Heng. Of course, although they didn't attack, the rhinoceros king's gaze towards Zhao Heng was full of contempt. The one they submitted to was Yi Chen, not anyone else. If Yi Chen didn't order them to do so, the first thing they would do when they saw an outsider was to kill them. Arriving at the lakeside, Yi Chen looked around and then walked to a flat area. He waved his right hand and a gold village creation token appeared in Yi Chen's hand. Looking at the gold village creation token, Yi Chen chose to use it without hesitation. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for establishing a subsidiary village. Please name the village. Yi Chen was silent for a moment and then said two words. Expedition. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for establishing a subsidiary village, Expedition Village. In the next second, 3 thatched huts appeared where Yi Chen was standing, 1 big and 2 small. At this moment, 3 figures appeared beside Yi Chen. The light dissipated and 3 men appeared. After the 3 appeared, they were confused for a moment. When they saw Yi Chen, they bowed and said, "Greetings, my lord. You're here." Yi Chen looked at the 3 people and said with a smile, "Yes, my lord." The 3 people said in unison. The 3 of them were the initial characters given by the system after the village was built. They would assist Yi Chen in building his territory. No matter who it was, as long as they built a village, the system would give them 3 people. Yi Chen's village creation token was a gold village creation token, so the 3 people's grades wouldn't be low. Yi Chen moved his mind and the information of the 3 people appeared in Yi Chen's sight. Zhou Xiong. Level SS. Because Expedition Village is a subsidiary village of Samsara City, it is affected by the God-level village creation token. The residents' qualifications are increased by 2 levels. Profession: General Loyalty, 90 Force, 91 Politics, 52 Root Bone, 78 Spirit, 82 Inch Zhou Hu. Level SS. Profession: General Loyalty, 90 Force, 93 Politics, 20 Root Bone, 82 Spirit, 81 Zhou Bao. Level SS. Profession: General Loyalty, 90 Force, 92 Politics, 39 Root Bone, 81 Spirit, 86. After seeing the 3 people's attribute panel, Yi Chen smiled and pointed at Zhao Heng. This is Zhao Heng, the vice-castellan of Samsara City. He is here to build a subsidiary village of Samsara City. In the future, you must do your best to assist him and develop Expedition Village. The three of them were stunned when they heard this. They did not expect this village to be a subsidiary village of the world's #1 city, Samsara City. My lord, are you General Pacifying North of the Great Han Empire, General Yi Chen? Zhou Xiong looked at Yi Chen in shock and asked. Yi Chen was stunned when he heard this. He then asked, You know me? Zhou Xiong was overjoyed when he heard this. He then bowed solemnly and said, My lord, your name is now known all over the world. The name of Samsara City has spread all over the world. My lord, your military achievements are outstanding and unparalleled. Zhou Hu and Zhou Bao were excited at this moment. Obviously, they were excited when they found out about Yi Chen's identity. This was because the lord they were about to follow was the famous General Pacifying North of the world, Yi Chen. At this moment, 3 system notifications rang out. Ding. Zhou Xiong's loyalty +10, advanced to loyal. Ding. Zhou Hu's loyalty +10, advanced to loyal. Ding. Zhou Bao's loyalty +10, advanced to loyal. After hearing the system notifications, Yi Chen could not help but smile. He then looked at Zhou Xiong, Zhou Hu, and Zhou Bao and said, The conditions here are very harsh. We won't be able to contact the outside world for a while. However, this is an island. There will most likely be pirates. The 3 of you must do your best to prevent Expedition Village from being captured by the pirate. Don't worry, my lord. Even if the 3 of us die, we won't let the Expeditionary Village be occupied by pirates. Zhou Xiong, Zhou Hu, and Zhou Bao immediately straightened their expressions and solemnly bowed. Yi Chen nodded with satisfaction and said, I have brought you 10,000 elite warriors. This time, I've brought 10,000 elite Samsara soldiers. I'll leave them to the 3 of you to command. The safety of the Expeditionary Village will be in your hands. Chapter 264. Yes, my lord. Zhou Xiong, Zhou Hu, and Zhou Bao were all stunned. They then bowed in ecstasy. They hadn't expected to be entrusted with such an important task as soon as they followed Yi Chen. How could they not be excited? How could they not be? Yi Chen chuckled and nodded his head when he saw the 3's ecstatic expressions. If the 3 of them weren't so loyal to Yi Chen would never have given them the 10,000 Samsara soldiers he brought, especially when he couldn't get in touch with them for a long time. This was because there would be variables. The more time passed, the more variables there would be. This wasn't something Yi Chen wanted to see. Of course, this wouldn't happen now. After the 3 of them found out about Yi Chen's identity, they had become Yi Chen's loyal followers. Yi Chen naturally didn't have to worry. My lord, your humble servant will go and bring the people here. We'll build the houses as soon as possible. Zhao Heng looked at Yi Chen and bowed. Good. Zhou Xiong, Zhou Hu, and Zhou Bao, the 3 of you go and meet the 10,000 elite Samsara soldiers. Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. He suddenly remembered something and waved his right hand. 3 sets of Earth-grade equipment appeared on the ground. These were the spoils of war from Yi Chen's northern expedition to Wuhuan. There were quite a lot of them. However, Yi Chen kept them at least yellow-grade equipment to reward the centurions and kiliarchs of the Samsara soldiers. Zhou Xiong, Zhou Hu, and Zhou Bao had just bowed and were about to accept the order when they were stunned. Seeing the 3 of them in a daze, Yi Chen chuckled and said, These are the 3 sets of equipment for you. This is equipment for the 3 of you. We don't know how many pirates there are here, and we don't know how strong or weak they are. With good equipment you can both protect yourselves and help you kill your enemies. Thank you, my lord. We swear to follow you until death. If we violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy us. Zhou Xiong, Zhou Hu, and Zhou Bao trembled when they heard this. They then bowed emotionally. When they came, they were all naked and had no equipment at all. Obviously, they didn't come from a good background. And now they had followed Yi Chun and directly received Earth-rank equipment. At this moment, the three of them were extremely excited. Of course, in addition to their excitement, their hearts were filled with thoughts of following Yi Chun to their death. For the sake of Yi Chun and for the sake of Yi Chun, they were willing to sacrifice their lives. Yi Chun nodded with a smile and said, "Put it on." "Yes, my lord." Zhou Xiong, Zhou Hu, and Zhou Bao nodded heavily in response. Then, they each picked up one of the 3 sets of Earth-level equipment and put them on. After dressing up, the 3 of them bowed to Yi Chun again and then followed Zhao Heng, who had been waiting for a while, to the beach. Yi Chun glanced at the newly established expeditionary village and raised his eyebrows. Although the expeditionary village had just been built, it was definitely developing quickly. It wouldn't be long before it developed into a town and then a city. Yi Chun had prepared a lot of resources for the expeditionary village. He had brought with him all kinds of blueprints and construction resources. Even if he didn't collect them, he could still meet the construction needs of the expeditionary village. When he had the chance, he would get some awesome warship blueprints. In this way, the shortcoming of the Navy in Samsara City would be solved. However, the Navy didn't have a suitable historical general yet. Thinking of this, Yi Chun looked at the 3 heaven-grade recruitment tokens in his storage space. They were the rewards for the northern expedition to Wuhuan. Yi Chun hadn't used them yet. This was because after using the heaven-grade recruitment tokens, he would automatically gain the loyalty of a first-rate historical figure or even a super first-rate historical figure. However, these historical figures would appear directly in Samsara City. If Yi Chun wasn't in Samsara City, these historical figures would definitely turn around and leave. This wasn't what Yi Chun wanted to see. Of course, this was the only use of the heaven-grade recruitment tokens. There was another use for them. Only Yi Chun knew this at the moment. That was to use them directly on historical figures. Moreover, they would be forcibly subdued regardless of whether the historical figures agreed or not. The recruitment tokens were indeed good. He hoped that the historical figures he met after meeting Lu Hong would be willing to follow him. Otherwise, thinking of this, Yi Chun's eyes flashed. Then, he looked at the place where Dian Xiong and the barbaric Rhino King were fighting. In the next second, Yi Chun could not help but raise his eyebrows. Dian Xiong was indeed fierce. The barbaric Rhino King had completely lost its previous arrogance. It lowered its head to Dian Xiong to show its submission. Dian Xiong, on the other hand, looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. The surrounding Samsara soldiers all cheered loudly. Seeing this, Yi Chun walked straight over. When Dian Xiong saw Yi Chun arrive, he hurriedly bowed and said, "My lord, I succeeded. Well done. From now on, this wild rhinoceros king will be your mount." Yi Chun chuckled and nodded his head, before opening his mouth to speak. "Thank you, my lord, for your grace." Dian Xiong bowed excitedly. Yi Chun laughed heartily. Then, he looked at the barbaric Rhino King and said, "Go, take your brothers to the beach and enter the transfer gate. Remember, after entering the transfer gate, don't wander around. Line up and don't hurt anyone. Otherwise, you know the consequences." After saying this, Yi Chun's eyes suddenly widened. The God-Slayer instantly appeared in his right hand. His murderous aura was released in an incomparably violent manner. Seeing this, the barbaric Rhino King was so scared that its rhino eyes instantly widened. Before, Yi Chun had taught it a lesson with his bare hand. But now, when Yi Chun's God-Slayer appeared, it was so scared that its body began to tremble. It felt the threat of death. It even had a feeling that if it dared to disobey any of Yi Chun's orders, it would immediately be killed. "Moo!" The barbaric Rhino King hastily let out a submissive roar and vigorously nodded its head. Seeing this, Yi Chun nodded his head in satisfaction. Then, he put away the God-Slayer. "Moo!" A long roar came from the barbaric Rhino King's mouth. In the next second, the herd of barbaric rhinos began to move. They lined up one by one and followed the barbaric Rhino King to the beach. Seeing the enormous barbaric rhinos, Yi Chen faintly smiled. Then, he looked at Dian Xiong and said, Dian Xiong, lead the way. Dian Xiong, you lead the way. Don't let these savage rhinos run around and destroy the buildings in the city. Yes, my lord. Hearing this, Dian Xiong hurriedly bowed and responded. Then, he walked towards the portal. Congratulations, my lord. Congratulations, my lord. With the addition of these savage beasts, the strength of Samsara City will definitely increase greatly. The rise of Samsara City will be unstoppable. Zhao Heng, who was leading the villagers to the expedition village, came to Yi Chen's side and said respectfully. Yi Chen nodded his head with a smile. Then, he looked at Zhao Heng and said solemnly, Zhao Heng, I'll leave the expedition village to you. Zhao Heng, I'll leave the expeditionary village in your hands. Although the village is very important, your safety is more important. Don't overwork yourself. If there's any danger, remember to prioritize your own safety. The village can be rebuilt if it's gone, but if you're gone, everything will be gone. Hearing this, Zhao Heng was so moved that tears flowed down his old face. Then, he solemnly bowed and said, Your humble servant will follow you, my lord. Even if I die, I will have no regrets. Seeing this, Yi Chen sighed and patted Zhao Heng's shoulder. Then, he looked at Zhou Xiong, Zhou Bao, and Zhou Hu and said solemnly, The safety of the people in the expedition village and Deputy Governor, Zhao Heng, is the most important thing. The expedition village comes second. You must do your best. Don't slack off. Yes, my lord. We won't let any harm come to the people or Deputy Governor. Zhou Xiong, Zhou Hu, and Zhou Bao solemnly bowed and said. Yi Chen nodded his head and walked towards the portal. Soon, he arrived at the portal. After a barbaric rhino walked into the portal, Yi Chen followed it in. As soon as the dizziness disappeared, a scream suddenly came from outside the governor's mansion. Chapter 265. When Yi Chen heard this, he immediately frowned. This is the voice of a eunuch. Thinking of this, Yi Chen moved and left the hall. In a few breaths, he arrived at the entrance of the city lord's mansion. He saw a little eunuch who was pale with fright as he watched the rhinoceroses walk out of the city lord's mansion and retreated step by step. Big eunuch Zhang Li's little brother, little eunuch Sandazi. Yi Chen instantly recognized the little eunuch's identity. When little eunuch Sandazi saw Yi Chen, it was as if he saw his savior. He urgently shouted, General Pingbei, save me, save me! Don't worry, eunuch. Although they have a fierce and aggressive personality, they won't casually hurt people. Yi Chen felt sick in his heart, but he shouted with a smile on his face. When little eunuch Sandazi heard this, he was instantly stunned. Then, he revealed a face of disbelief. These are all savage beasts. Savage beasts and savage rhinoceroses. When the little eunuch said this, he suddenly realized something. These savage rhinoceroses only glanced at him and ignored him. Then, they left one by one. Thinking of this, the little eunuch looked at Yi Chen with incomparable shock. Then, he opened his mouth and asked, Have these savage rhinoceroses already submitted to General Pingbei? Eunuch is right. The savage rhinoceroses have already submitted to me. Don't worry, eunuch. Yi Chen walked toward little eunuch Sandazi at this moment. He chuckled as he walked. When Sandazi heard this, he immediately raised his thumb and middle finger and gave a sweet smile. Then, he said with incomparable joy, Heavens, General Yi is indeed a peerless general. No wonder Zhang Chongshi often praises General Yi. He said that General Yi is rare in the heavens and hard to find on the earth. He is an invincible general who is the best in both ancient and modern times. Even His Majesty deeply agrees. When Yi Chen heard this, he instantly understood what the third disease meant. He was speaking up for head eunuch Zhang Li. He was also clearly telling Yi Chen that Zhang Li had put in a lot of good words for Yi Chen. Otherwise, why would Lu Hong also think that Yi Chen was a peerless valiant general? Knowing was one thing, but Yi Chen didn't take it to heart. He was just using Zhang Li. Yi Chen wasn't stupid enough to be grateful to Zhang Li and become his underling. Of course, on the surface, Yi Chen still pretended to understand. However, the appearance of the little eunuch San De disgusted Yi Chen. F***ck, if you want to talk, just talk. Why do you have to raise your orchid fingers and smile like a woman? Yi Chen was a little tired of thinking. He tried hard to stabilize his impulse to slap this little eunuch San De. Then he laughed and said, "Ha ha, I didn't expect that I would receive such praise from Zhang Chongshi. I'm really ashamed. General Yi is indeed a peerless valiant general. You have to know that even His Majesty agreed after hearing Zhang Chongshi's praise," the little eunuch San De said with a smile. The little eunuch San De said with a smile. As he spoke, he even took out a handkerchief and wiped his forehead. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but smile. Then he said, "Eunuch, please come in." After Yi Chen finished speaking, he gestured for the little eunuch San De to enter the city lord's residence. However, when he was doing this, he secretly released a killing intent toward the savage rhinoceros at the entrance. The savage rhinoceros that felt Yi Chen's killing intent was immediately frightened. It then stopped and looked at Yi Chen in horror. Just as the little eunuch San De nodded his head, he saw the savage rhinoceros that stopped and looked over. Seeing the savage rhinoceros suddenly widen its eyes, the little eunuch San De, who had just recovered his normal complexion, instantly turned incomparably pale. He hastily moved to Yi Chen's side and stuttered, young master, General Yi, I'm truly afraid of this savage rhinoceros. How about this, let's go to an inn." When San De said this, he suddenly thought of something and hurriedly added, "General Yi, I don't have any intentions of looking down on General Yi. General Yi, please don't hold a grudge against me. It's my negligence. Although this savage rhinoceros has submitted to me, its personality cannot be changed. If it is alarmed, it is very likely that it will explode and hurt people. Eunuch, please don't take it to heart." Yi Chen suddenly froze and then said with a face of shame. Yi Chen's expression was naturally all an act. He actually didn't plan on telling this little eunuch to go to the city lord's residence. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have secretly provoked the savage rhinoceros. As for the reason, it was very simple. There was a transportation formation in the city lord's residence. The savage rhinoceros was continuously being transported to Samsara City. If the little eunuch knew the exact number, Zhang Li would definitely know. At that time, Lu Hong might also know. Once Lu Hong knew the exact number of savage rhinoceros, he would be suspicious of Yi Chen. After all, the savage rhinoceros was a peak existence among the savage beasts. If it was tamed into a mount and used to form a heavy cavalry, its power would be very strong. If the number was small, Lu Hong wouldn't care. Once the number was large, Lu Hong would definitely not be able to sit still, and the result would be that he would be very afraid of Yi Chen. He would even order for the savage rhinoceros. This wasn't what Yi Chen wanted to see. When the little eunuch San De heard this, he immediately let out a sigh of relief. He secretly glanced at the savage rhinoceros that was still staring at them with its rhinoceros eyes. He suddenly shivered. Then, he looked at Yi Chen and tried his best to put on a smile. He said with incomparable joy, "As long as General Yi doesn't hold a grudge against me, I'm relieved. General Yi, please. Eunuch, please go first," Yi Chen said with a smile. As he spoke, he gestured for him to go first. When Yi Chen finished speaking, the little eunuch San De didn't dare to continue being courteous. He immediately walked towards the inn. "Obediently line up and leave the city. You don't know what's good for you. You actually scared my esteemed guest. If it wasn't for the fact that there were so few of you, I would have killed you." At this time, Yi Chen looked at the savage rhinoceros that was still standing at the entrance and berated. The reason why Yi Chen said this was actually for the little eunuch San De to hear. His purpose was very clear. He wanted to tell Sandazi that there weren't many savage rhinoceros in Samsara City. As for the specific number, as long as Yi Chen didn't act against Zhongli at this moment, even if Zhongli knew about the savage rhinoceros, he wouldn't investigate Yi Chen on this matter. After all, in Zhongli's eyes, Yi Chen was a capable and super awesome subordinate. It wasn't worthwhile to make Yi Chen unhappy on this matter. At this time, the savage rhinoceros at the entrance realized that Yi Chen didn't have any killing intent and even reprimanded it. The rhinoceros's face immediately showed a blank expression. However, it could still understand Yi Chen's orders. Although it didn't understand why Yi Chen showed killing intent towards it, it didn't dare to disobey Yi Chen's orders. It immediately let out a submissive roar. Moo! Then it moved its 4 hooves and walked forward. Seeing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Then he turned around and caught up with the little eunuch Sandazi. Together they walked towards the inn. Chapter 266. The inns in Reincarnation City were extremely luxurious, especially the heavenly ones. They were all 2-entry and 2-exit courtyards decorated with all kinds of precious flowers and plants. Those who stayed in the heavenly ones were all merchants who came to Reincarnation City. However, all the merchants had been chased away by Yi Chen, so the heavenly courtyards of the inns were all empty. As soon as Yi Chen arrived, the innkeeper hurriedly came forward to greet him. Then, he led Yi Chen to the heavenly one. As soon as he entered the hall, the little eunuch San Detsi exhaled deeply. He was really frightened by the wild rhinoceros. Although the wild rhinoceros had submitted to Yi Chen, San Detsi was still afraid. After sitting in the main seat, Yi Chen looked at San Detsi and said with an ashamed face, "Eunuch, I'm sorry for the shock. Take these specialties as a way to get over the shock." After Yi Chen finished speaking, he waved his right hand. 5 chests of jewelry and 5 chests of gold immediately appeared in the hall. The little eunuch San Detsi's eyes lit up the moment he saw the 10 chests. Then, he said with great joy, "Oh, General Yi, you're too polite. Too polite." After San Detsi finished speaking, he waved his right hand and the 10 chests instantly disappeared. Damn polite? Don't accept it, Yi Chen thought with disdain. Then, he asked with a smile, "May I know why eunuch is here?" When the little eunuch San Detsi heard this, he immediately beamed with joy and said, "General Yi quelled the rebellion in Yuzhou in less than a month. He even uprooted Wuhuan. His Majesty is even more ecstatic. Therefore, he specially asked me to come to Reincarnation City and invite General Yi to Luoyang to meet His Majesty." When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and ask, "I see. May I know when His Majesty will set the time?" Naturally, the sooner the better. The little eunuch San Detsi suddenly froze. Then, he hurriedly changed his words. "General Yi has just returned in triumph. I'm sure he hasn't reunited with his family yet. I'll return to Luoyang and tell Zhang Changshi. I'm sure Zhang Changshi will definitely speak up for General Yi. It won't be a problem if it's a day or 2 later." When Yi Chen heard this, he laughed heartily and said, "That's right. With Zhang Changshi speaking, everything will naturally go smoothly. Although this Yi really wants to reunite with my family, since His Majesty has already set a time, I naturally cannot keep His Majesty waiting. Tomorrow morning, this Yi will go to Luoyang to meet His Majesty." Yi Chen did not believe the words of the little eunuch Sandazi. F***ck, what time is it? Isn't it nonsense to go to Luoyang to meet Lu Hong? If he wanted to go, it would be during the morning court assembly. If Lu Hong wanted to see Yi Chen, it would definitely be during the morning court assembly. If Lu Hong really wanted to meet Yi Chen now, Third Dazi would definitely not say that it was fine to meet him a day or 2 later. This was because Zhang Li was not stupid. If Lu Hong really wanted to meet Yi Chen now and persuade Lu Hong not to meet him now, wouldn't he be seeking trouble for himself? The reason why Third Dazi said that the sooner, the better, was naturally because he wanted Yi Chen to immediately go to Luoyang to meet Zhang Li and not Lu Hong. If he really went to Luoyang now and met Zhang Li, Yi Chen's reputation would be affected. How could Yi Chen follow Zhang Li's wishes and really go to Luoyang to meet Zhang Li? When the little eunuch Sandazi heard this, he immediately smiled and said, "All right, since that's the case, I'll return to Luoyang to report." Yi Chen mentioned Zhang Li in every word, so the little eunuch Sandazi naturally did not have any doubts about Yi Chen. Furthermore, it was normal for Yi Chen to want to reunite with his family. Third Dazi also understood this. In addition, Yi Chen was generous, so Third Dazi was even less suspicious of Yi Chen. "If that's the case, I'll have to trouble you." Yi Chen chuckled and cupped his fist. We're family, we're family. General Yi, please don't treat me as an outsider." Third Dazi said with a smile. When Yi Chen heard this, he immediately laughed and said, "I'll send you off. I'll have to trouble General Yi." The little eunuch Sandazi wanted to be polite, but he immediately thought of the wild rhinoceros in Samsara City and hurriedly nodded in response. "Please, eunuch." Yi Chen immediately stood up and said with a chuckle. After that, he sent Third Dazi out of the inn and to the teleportation formation. "General Yi, I'll take my leave." After the little eunuch stood on the teleportation formation, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he looked at Yi Chen and bowed with a smile. After that, a light flashed and he disappeared. Zhang Li, this son of a bitch, actually wants me to meet him. What a good plan. Zhang Li wanted to meet Yi Chen. His purpose was very simple. He wanted to make use of Yi Chen's outstanding military exploits in quelling the rebellion in Yuzhou and uprooting Wu Huan to show his face and tell everyone in the Great Han Empire that he, Zhang Li, was the most loyal and patriotic person. This was because Yi Chen was promoted by him. Of course, this was what he thought. On the other hand, Zhang Li wanted to confirm the relationship between him and Yi Chen. He wanted to tell everyone that Yi Chen was really on his side. Unfortunately, although his idea was good, Yi Chen saw through it. Naturally, he would not fall into Zhang Li's trap. Yi Chen thought disdainfully and then walked toward the city gate. The wild rhinoceros herd had just arrived in Samsara City. Naturally, Yi Chen wanted to go over and take a look. At the same time, he wanted to see how fast the wild rhinoceros was tamed. After walking for a while, the figures of the people of Samsara City appeared in Yi Chen's sight. Without exception, they all obeyed Yi Chen's order and watched the wild rhinoceros line up and walk out of the city. Yi Chen's order had been sent out. Naturally, the people of Samsara City would not casually approach the wild rhinoceros. Looking at the densely packed people of Samsara City in front of him, Yi Chen could not help but smile. No wonder I didn't see anyone in the governor's mansion. It turns out that they all ran to the city gate to see the wild rhinoceros. "My lord! It's my lord!" A person of Samsara City shouted in surprise when he saw Yi Chen. As soon as he finished speaking, the people of Samsara City all looked at Yi Chen and bowed. "Greetings, my lord!" The voices of the people were full of excitement and pride, because their lord had brought a herd of wild beasts. Although the people had never seen or even heard of the wild rhinoceros before, they had heard of the existence of wild beasts. Now, after seeing the notice, the people of Samsara City finally knew what kind of wild rhinoceros were. Just by looking at the size of the wild rhinoceros and the thick scales on its body, they knew how powerful the wild rhinoceros was. With this herd of wild beasts, Samsara City's strength would definitely increase greatly. For the people of Samsara City, the stronger Samsara City was, the happier and prouder they would be. Because they were members of Samsara City. Yi Chen looked at the excited people of Samsara City and nodded with a smile. Then, he walked toward the city gate. When he arrived outside Samsara City, Yi Chen saw Dian Xiong and Zhao Yun and Guo Yi standing next to Dian Xiong and looking at the wild rhinoceros herd with a smile. When they saw Yi Chen, Dian Xiong, Zhao Yun, and Guo Yi bowed together and said, Greetings, my lord. Yi Chen nodded with a smile and walked toward them. When he came closer, he looked into the distance and saw the beast tamer who was whispering to the wild rhinoceros and patting it from time to time. How's the efficiency? Yi Chen looked at Guo Yi and asked. My lord, the god-level beast taming skill is indeed extraordinary. In such a short time, you have already tamed 10 wild rhinoceros. Guo Yi hurriedly bowed and said when he heard Yi Chen's question. Chapter 267. Hearing this, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He then nodded in satisfaction and said, Very good. Prepare 10,000 for the Samsara Legion. The rest will be decided later. Guo Yi was stunned for a moment, then he understood what Yi Chen meant. He nodded, then bowed and said, Yes, my lord. As soon as Guo Yi's words fell, Zhao Meng rushed over in a hurry. When he arrived, he bowed and said, This general pays his respects to the lord. Zhao Meng, why are you in such a hurry? Yi Chen paused for a moment before asking in astonishment. My lord, this is a savage rhinoceros. This general wants a savage rhinoceros as a mount. I don't know if. Zhao Meng rushed over excitedly, but when the words reached his mouth, he became embarrassed. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but smile and said, Of course you can. This isn't a difficult matter. Many thanks for my lord's gift. This general wants this one. Zhao Meng immediately bowed in ecstasy. After saying this, he pointed at the savage rhinoceros king beside Dian Xiong. It was clearly twice the size of an ordinary savage rhinoceros. When Dian Xiong saw this, he paused. No matter how Dian Xiong thought about it, he didn't expect Zhao Meng to want his savage rhinoceros king. Big brother, that is General Dian Xiong's mount. Moreover, General Dian Xiong subdued it. Apart from my lord, no one else can approach it. When Zhao Yun discovered that Zhao Meng wanted Dian Xiong's savage rhinoceros king, his expression suddenly changed and he hurriedly said, When Zhao Meng heard this, he was stunned. He quickly looked at Dian Xiong and cupped his fist apologetically. General Dian, this Zhao didn't know that was General Dian's mount. Please don't blame this Zhao. It's fine. This isn't a big deal. Dian Xiong laughed and said indifferently, Tonight at the restaurant, this Zhao will treat General Dian to wine as an apology. I hope General Dian will do me the honor. Zhao Meng once again said with incomparable sincerity, Okay. When Dian Xiong heard this, he couldn't help but smile and nod his head in agreement. When Zhao Meng saw this, he once again looked apologetically at Dian Xiong. He then looked at Yi Chen and bowed. My lord, this general only heard that my lord had obtained a herd of wild rhinoceroses. That's why I came to ask my lord for a mount. I definitely don't want to compete with General Dian. Zhao Meng was afraid that Yi Chen would misunderstand him and think that he was arrogant because of his status as an elder of Samsara City. Yi Chen could naturally tell what Zhao Meng was thinking and what he was worried about. He shook his head helplessly and then came to Zhao Meng's side. He helped Zhao Meng up and patted Zhao Meng's shoulder. Generals love famous colt. The better the mount, the easier it is to kill enemies on the battlefield. As the lord, how could I not know what you are thinking? Moreover, Dian Xiong did not care about it. There is no need to think too much. Go and choose a savage rhinoceros first. Yes. When Zhao Meng heard this, he let out a sigh of relief and hurriedly bowed. Guo Yi looked at Zhao Meng and chuckled. General Zhao Meng, if you really like this savage rhinoceros as a mount, you can cultivate it into something like the savage rhinoceros king if you have any heavenly treasures in the future. When Zhao Meng heard this, his eyes suddenly lit up and he asked, Military advisor, are you serious? It's absolutely true. Guo Yi nodded affirmatively and then said, Big brother, the savage rhinoceros is not an ordinary warhorse. There is a lot of room for improvement. Zhao Yun said with a chuckle, My lord, this general will go and choose a savage rhinoceros now. Zhao Meng was overjoyed when he heard this. He then looked at Yi Chen and bowed. Go. Yi Chen nodded with a chuckle and then said, Yes, my lord. Zhao Meng hurriedly bowed and then ran to choose a savage rhinoceros. Not long after, Zhao Meng chose a savage rhinoceros and rode it back and forth. Then, he began to run. Soon, Zhao Meng was shouting excitedly. This was because the savage rhinoceros's running speed was simply too fast. It was not inferior to an ordinary warhorse. Moreover, it had more stamina and was more stable. If one rode a savage rhinoceros onto the battlefield, their power would definitely skyrocket. Seeing the excited Zhao Meng, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. He then looked at Guo Yi and asked, Have you recorded the contributions of the soldiers for the northern expedition to Wuhuan? My lord, the contributions of the soldiers have been recorded in Jiadu. There will be no mistakes. Guo Yi hurriedly bowed when he heard Yi Chen's question. He then took out a booklet and handed it to Yi Chen. Yi Chen took the booklet and opened it to read for a while. He nodded in satisfaction and then looked at Dian Xiong. Dian Xiong, stay here and watch over the savage rhinoceros in case something happens when the beast tamer uses his beast taming technique. Yes, my lord. Dian Xiong immediately bowed when he heard this. Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. At this moment, Zhao Meng rode over on the savage rhinoceros king and then got off the ground. In the next second, Zhao Meng patted the savage rhinoceros with his right hand and it instantly disappeared. Yi Chen was stunned when he saw this. My lord, once the savage rhinoceros chooses a mount, it will automatically create a large mount space. When not in use, you can place the savage rhinoceros inside. Zhao Meng looked at Yi Chen with incomparable surprise and then bowed as he spoke. When Yi Chen heard this, his eyes suddenly opened wide and he shouted, Good! The savage rhinoceros's body was huge, and the amount of food it consumed could be said to be terrifying. With a mount space, the savage rhinoceros's food could naturally be placed inside. This way, the savage rhinoceros's endurance would greatly increase. When Dian Xiong heard this, he copied Zhao Meng's actions and patted the savage rhinoceros king's body. In the next second, the savage rhinoceros king disappeared instantly. When Dian Xiong saw this, his eyes lit up. He waved his right hand and the savage rhinoceros king appeared on the spot with a confused look on its face. Yi Chen was slightly stunned and then realized why Dian Xiong did not discover the mount space in the beginning. Because Dian Xiong's savage rhinoceros king had not been tamed by an animal tamer, so Dian Xiong had to actively activate it. When he thought of this, Yi Chen could not help but smile and then said, Let's go to the drill ground. Yes, my lord. Zhao Yun, Zhao Meng, and Guo Yi bowed in unison and then followed Yi Chen to the drill ground. In the drill ground of Samsara City. When Yi Chen arrived and stepped onto the high platform, earth-shattering cheers instantly rang out. Greetings, my lord. Yi Chen looked at the inexplicably excited Samsara City soldiers below the platform and nodded with a smile. Then, he shouted, When marching and fighting, there are rewards and punishments for meritorious service. In this northern expedition to Wuhuan, we were able to return victorious because of your contributions. Therefore, today you will be rewarded according to your contributions. Chapter 268. Long live the Lord! 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 Hearing this, the 100,000 Samsara soldiers were overjoyed. They all raised their spears and cheered. Yi Chen looked at the excited Samsara soldiers with a smile. After a while, he raised his hand to signal for them to be quiet. When the soldiers quieted down, Yi Chen picked up the booklet Guo Yi had given him, opened it, and shouted, Zhang Daniu. When a simple-looking Chiliarch heard this, he hurriedly stepped out of the ranks and went forward. Then, he knelt on one knee and replied loudly, Chiliarch Zhang Daniu pays his respects to the Lord. Yi Chen nodded and said, You've killed 1318 soldiers. You've also risked your life to save the lives of 86 soldiers. Your contribution is great. You're rewarded with 1,000 taels of gold, a bottle of 100 flowers wine, a fine warhorse, an emperor-level cultivation method, an earth-level armor, and 2 earth-level weapons. Zhang Dainyu was stunned by Yi Chen's words. The soldiers below the stage were also stunned. Whether it was Zhang Dainyu or the other Samsara soldiers, none of them had expected Yi Chen's reward to be so high. It was terrifyingly great. 1,000 taels of gold, a bottle of 100 flowers wine, and a fine warhorse were enough to cover Zhang Dainyu's contribution. Who would have thought that there would be an emperor-level cultivation method and 3 earth-level weapons? There wasn't a single Samsara soldier who didn't know what an emperor-level cultivation method was. With an emperor-level cultivation method, as long as one wasn't stupid or lazy, one would definitely become an emperor-level general. They were all born poor. They didn't even dare to hope for a king-level cultivation method, let alone an emperor-level cultivation method. And now, Yi Chen had actually given the monarch-level cultivation technique to Zhang Dainyu as a reward. How could they not be stunned? Looking at the dazed Samsara soldiers below the stage, Yi Chen smiled and said, "You're all loyal soldiers of Samsara. You are all loyal soldiers of Samsara City. You are willing to fight on the battlefield for Samsara City and for me, your lord. You are not afraid of death. How can I be reluctant to give up such things? In my opinion, your lives are the most precious." As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, Zhang Dainyu instantly raised 3 fingers and choked with sobs as he shouted, "Zhang Dainyu swears to follow the Lord till death. If I violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy me." Just as Zhang Dainyu finished speaking, a swoosh sound was heard. 100,000 Samsara soldiers knelt down on one knee and roared, "We pledge our lives to follow the Lord. If we violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy us." The cheers of 100,000 people shook the sky and shook the soul. At this moment, all of the Samsara soldiers' hearts were burning. Yi Chen looked at the indescribably excited Samsara soldiers and nodded his head in satisfaction. Then, he waved his right hand. 1,000 gold taels, an Emperor Tier skill manual, and 3 Earth Tier equipment appeared in front of Zhang Dainyu. Looking at the 1,000 gold taels, the Emperor Tier skill manual, and the 3 Earth Tier equipment, Zhang Dainyu couldn't help but tremble. Because he was excited, because he was touched, because Yi Chen's rewards were real and not fake. "Thank you, Lord, for your gifts." Zhang Dainyu bowed deeply and put away the items on the ground. Then, he took out the Emperor Tier skill manual and chose to use it without hesitation. His martial strength had already reached 90. However, without the skill manual, he couldn't break through the innate realm and become a king general. But now, he had the skill manual, and it was an Emperor Tier skill manual. In other words, as long as there were no setbacks in his future, he would definitely become an Emperor General. For Zhang Dainyu, who was born in poverty, his feelings were indescribable. He was touched. Yi Chen looked at the inexplicably excited Zhang Dainyu and smiled slightly. Then, he shouted, "Wang Erjin!" When a Chiliarch heard this, his body trembled violently. Like Zhang Dainyu, he was also a Chiliarch. He also contributed a lot. Since Yi Chen called his name, it meant that he would also receive the same rewards as Zhang Dainyu. Wang Erjin tried his best to calm his violently beating heart. Then, he stepped out of the ranks and went below the stage. Bang! Wang Erjin knelt heavily on one knee and said loudly, "Chiliarch Wang Erjin pays his respects to the Lord." Yi Chen nodded and said, "You have killed 1292 people. You've killed 1289 enemies and saved the lives of 92 soldiers. Your contribution is great. Reward: 1,000 gold coins, 1 bottle of 100 flowers wine, 1 high-quality warhorse, 1 Emperor-grade technique, 1 Earth-grade armor, and 2 Earth-grade weapons. Wang Erjin swears to follow the Lord until death. If I break this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy me." When Wang Erjin heard this, he bowed emotionally. Yi Chen nodded with a smile. With a wave of his right hand, 1,000 gold taels, an Emperor tier skill manual, and 3 Earth tier weapons appeared in front of Wang Erjin. Looking at the rewards from Yi Chen, Wang Erjin took a deep breath. After a long exhalation, he put away the rewards on the ground. Then, like Zhang Dainiu, he learned the Emperor tier skill manual on the spot. When the Kiliarchs saw that Wang Erjin also received the same reward, their breathing became heavier and heavier. Then, they looked at Yi Chen with a longing expression. They had contributed a lot as well. According to the current situation, they could also receive the same rewards. How could they not look forward to it? How could they not desire it? That was an Emperor tier skill manual. Earth tier weapons were not cabbages. Yi Chen naturally saw the longing in the Kiliarch's eyes. He smiled slightly and continued to call out names according to the list. One by one, the Kiliarch's names were called out by Yi Chen. The rewards were given out one after another. The Kiliarchs of Samsara City were all very excited. After the Kiliarch's rewards were given out, Yi Chen began to give out the Centurion's rewards. It was similar to the Kiliarch's rewards. However, the skill manual became an Emperor tier skill manual, and the equipment became Mystery tier. The rewards seemed to be lower, but it was still beyond the Centurion's expectations. The rewards were not low. It was completely beyond their expectations. Their contributions were there for all to see. However, not only did Yi Chen give them Mystery tier equipment, he also gave them Emperor tier skill manuals. This was simply a great reward. After the Centurions received their rewards excitedly, Yi Chen immediately looked down at the Samsara City soldiers below the stage. Each of them had a look of anticipation on their faces. They had followed Yi Chen to the battlefield and killed enemies. Everyone had battle merits. Although their battle merits were not as great as those of the Kiliarchs and Centurions, their battle merits were still solid. Now that Yi Chen was giving out rewards based on their merits, and the rewards were very generous, they naturally looked forward to it. This was human nature. It was not greed or greed. Yi Chen knew and understood. He did not care about the soldiers' behavior. This was because the soldiers' battle merits were all exchanged with their life. Thinking of this, Yi Chen shouted in a very serious tone. Except for the Samsara Legion, all soldiers will receive 10 taels of gold, a King tier skill manual, and a set of Diamond tier equipment. When the Diamond tier equipment is completed, it will be replaced. Now, Kiliarchs, come forward to receive your gold and King tier skill manuals. Chapter 269. As soon as Yi Chen finished his words, the soldiers of the Samsara Legion didn't react in the slightest. This was because they knew that Yi Chen wouldn't leave them out in the cold. They were the Samsara Legion that Yi Chen had built single-handedly. They were the one and only Samsara Legion. When the soldiers outside the Samsara Legion heard Yi Chen's words, they were all stunned. Then, they instantly cheered. Long live the Lord! Long live the Lord! Never in their wildest dreams would they have thought that Yi Chen would actually give them a king-level cultivation technique. If they were soldiers outside and won a battle, according to their current merits, they would only be rewarded with a dozen taels of silver. However, these dozen taels of silver would most likely be deducted. It would be good if they could get 3 or 5 taels of silver after they got it. Even if they only got 3 or 5 taels of silver, they would still have followed the right person. If they followed the wrong person, they would most likely get nothing. But in Samsara City, they followed Yi Chen. Not only were their rewards not deducted, but they also greatly exceeded their expectations. The reward that Yi Chen gave them wasn't the dozens of taels of silver they had imagined, but 10 taels of gold. More importantly, they would be given a full set of diamond-level equipment. There was also a king-level cultivation method that they didn't even dare to dream of. How could the soldiers not know what a king-level cultivation method was? It was the key to entering the innate realm and becoming a king-level general. Becoming a king-level general was the dream of all the soldiers. Now, it had become a reality. Because their lord, Yi Chen, gave them a king-level cultivation method, and each of them was given a copy. At this moment, the hearts of the soldiers of Samsara City were surging with excitement. The reward that Yi Chen gave them was really too great. In addition to their excitement, the soldiers of Samsara City, who were originally determined to follow Yi Chen and were willing to sacrifice their lives for Yi Chen, had no regret. They were willing to sacrifice everything for Yi Chen and Samsara City, because their lord treated them like family and was extremely good to them. Yi Chen looked at the excited soldiers of Samsara City and couldn't help but smile. He waved his right hand and piles of king-level cultivation methods and gold appeared below the stage. Seeing this, the Kiliarchs immediately brought their subordinates forward to carry the king-level cultivation methods and gold. Soon, 10 taels of gold and king-level cultivation methods were distributed to the soldiers. Samsara City soldiers who received a king-level cultivation method, without exception, chose to use it on the spot. No one didn't want to become stronger, even if they were soldiers of a poor family. And now their chance had come. How could they not have learned the king-level cultivation methods? If other players knew about Yi Chen's generosity, they would definitely be dumbfounded. F***ck, so many king-class cultivation techniques, and he gave them to the soldiers just like that. Did he have to be so awesome? But Samsara's as the soldiers' Chen. Yi Chen's purpose in giving these cultivation methods to Samsara City's soldiers was very simple. He wanted to create invincible Samsara City soldiers. During the northern expedition to Wuhuan, Yi Chen had obtained countless cultivation methods and many pieces of equipment because of his good fortune. Yi Chen naturally wouldn't leave these things behind and let them rot. He wouldn't be stupid enough to sell them. No matter how much money he had, it wasn't as important as strength. Moreover, Yi Chen had obtained countless riches. He didn't lack money at all. The stronger Samsara City's soldiers were, the easier it would be to conquer the world. Moreover, Yi Chen still had to go to the secret dungeon to snatch the 9 cauldrons of the ancient kingdom. There, even the weakest existence was a king-level general. To snatch the 9 cauldrons of the ancient kingdom, Samsara City's soldiers couldn't be weak. Yi Chen had the ability to create strong soldiers. Naturally, he wouldn't be stingy. Moreover, these soldiers were all loyal to Yi Chen. They were willing to sacrifice their lives for Yi Chen. How could Yi Chen be so stupid as to not nurture these soldiers? After the Samsara City's soldiers received their cultivation methods and gold, Yi Chen looked at the Samsara Legion. They had followed Yi Chen since a long time ago. They were loyal and devoted, willing to risk their lives for him. At this moment, the Samsara Legion's soldiers had solemn expressions. They weren't envious or jealous of their colleagues' rewards at all. They weren't clamoring because Yi Chen hadn't mentioned their rewards. If the Samsara City soldiers were the elite of the elite, then the Samsara Legion was the king of the elite. Looking at the resolute Samsara Legion soldiers, Yi Chen smiled and shouted, "Samsara City's contributions to the Samsara Legion are all thanks to you. Each of you will be rewarded 100 taels of gold, a bottle of 100 flowers wine, a set of diamond equipment, a wild rhinoceros mount, and an emperor-level cultivation method." Swoosh! The Samsara Legion knelt down on one knee in unison. "Thank you, Lord, for your reward!" Thousands of voices shouted in unison. "We swear to follow you, Lord, to our deaths. If we violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy us." The soul-shaking oath followed. Seeing this, Yi Chen laughed. With a wave of his right hand, 1,000,000 taels of gold and 10,000 emperor-level cultivation methods appeared in front of the Samsara Legion. The Chiliarch of the Samsara Legion led his men forward to receive the rewards. Then, he distributed the gold and emperor-level cultivation methods to the Samsara Legion soldiers one by one. After the Samsara Legion soldiers received Yi Chen's rewards, they chose to learn the emperor-level cultivation methods without hesitation. After a few breaths, one powerful aura after another emerged from the Samsara Legion. These were the soldiers of the Samsara Legion breaking through from the acquired realm to the innate realm. This was because they had already accumulated enough, and were only one step away from the final step. What they lacked was nothing more than a cultivation method. Now that they had all obtained the Emperor-level cultivation methods, the restrictions no longer existed. Therefore, after learning the Emperor-level cultivation methods, the soldiers of the Samsara Legion broke through to the innate realm one after another. The surrounding Samsara soldiers saw the Samsara Legion's rewards and also saw the Samsara Legion breaking through to the innate realm. However, no one was jealous or envious. They only admired and respected them. This was because they knew that the Samsara Legion's military achievements were immeasurable. On the battlefield, the Samsara Legion was an invincible existence. They had killed countless enemies. These rewards were what the soldiers of the Samsara Legion deserved. Seeing the Samsara Legion soldiers break through one by one, Yi Chen's lips curled up. Then, he looked at Zhao Yun and asked, "Yunjing, have you finished selecting the white horses?" Hearing Yi Chen's question, Zhao Yun immediately knelt on one knee and shouted, "My lord, 100,000 white horses have been selected." Yi Chen nodded with satisfaction and then said, "Yunjing has made outstanding military achievements. From today onwards, you will lead 100,000 white horses in Samsara City." After saying this, Yi Chen waved his right hand and 6 heaven-level recruitment tokens appeared in his hand. Looking at the 6 heaven-level recruitment tokens in his hand, Yi Chen raised his eyebrows. 100,000 soldiers in one token were at least C-class elite soldiers. There might even be B-class soldiers. When they came to Samsara City, they would be A-class and B-class soldiers. Even S-class soldiers. Thinking of this, Yi Chen chose to use them without hesitation. Ding! Player Yi Chen used heaven-level recruitment token. Samsara City's military strength has increased by 100,000. After 6 consecutive notifications, the drill ground was instantly filled with bright lights. Chapter 270. When the light dissipated, 600,000 soldiers instantly appeared on the drill ground. After a brief moment of confusion, the 600,000 soldiers all looked at Yi Chen. Whoosh! The 600,000 soldiers uniformly knelt on one knee and said in unison, "Greetings, my lord." Their voices were like thunder, shaking the heavens and earth. Yi Chen couldn't help but smirk as he looked at the 600,000 Samsara recruits that had been recruited. These soldiers were all A rank, and some were even S rank. Their quality far surpassed that of ordinary recruit. Without a doubt, they were elite soldiers. After putting on their equipment, they could immediately enter the battlefield. A heaven-rank soldier recruitment order was truly extraordinary. Thinking of this, Yi Chen smiled and then shouted, "From today onward, you will all be Samsara soldiers. Each of you will be given a house and 5 mu of farmland. If you have a family, you can bring them to Samsara City. Samsara City will reimburse you for your travel expenses. If you have a family, you will also be given land according to your population. Each person will be given 5 mu of farmland. When you fight, you will be rewarded for your contributions and punished for your mistake. Those who die in battle will be given a grand funeral. Samsara City will be responsible for raising their children. Samsara City will be responsible for taking care of their parents. Their family members will receive a monthly pension of 1 gold and will be exempt from taxes for 3 years. In addition, they will be given 10 mu of farmland and will be exempt from taxes for the rest of their lives." As soon as Yi Chen's words fell, the 600,000 Samsara recruits were all stunned. Then, they all looked at each other in disbelief. When Yi Chen saw this, he couldn't help but stare blankly. "What's going on? You don't believe me?" Just as Yi Chen thought of this, a soldier suddenly mustered up his courage and looked at Yi Chen. He then bowed and asked, "My lord, are you the general who pacifies the north of the great Han Empire, General Yi Chen, who took 2 hours to break through Pingqing, killed the traitor Zhang Chun, and flattened Wuhuan in a day?" When Yi Chen heard this, he suddenly understood. Fuck, so that's how it is. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. He then nodded and said, correct, that's me? As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, the 600,000 Samsara recruits all widened their eyes and then revealed ecstatic expressions. Samsara City. We are the soldiers of Samsara City. They are General Pingbei's soldiers. Great. Milord is a peerless general of the great Han Empire, with outstanding military achievements. To be able to follow Milord is truly a great fortune. Of course, my lord is brave and unparalleled in the world. Ever since I heard about my lord's deeds, I couldn't wait to go to Samsara City and fight with my lord. I didn't expect to be here today. God has eyes. Me too. My lord's fame has spread all over the world. Not only do you love your soldiers like your own children, but you also use them like a god. Your strength is unparalleled in the great Han dynasty. When I heard about it, I wished I could grow a pair of wings and fly to Samsara City. But it's a long journey, and I have an old mother, wife, and children at home. Alas, I'm in the same situation. But now I'm in Samsara City. I'll be able to bring my family over after a month's salary. Brother, the Lord said that He would reimburse us for our travel expenses. We can bring our wives and children to Samsara City now. It's already a great fortune to be able to become Milord's soldiers. How can we ask Milord to pay for it? Yes, we can't ask Milord to pay for it. The soldiers discussed enthusiastically, expressing the excitement in their hearts. Because from now on, they would follow General Pingbei Yi Chen of the Great Han Empire, who had outstanding military achievements and was unparalleled in the world. Yi Chen's fame had long been known all over the world. It was because of this that they knew Yi Chen's name, Yi Chen's deeds, and news about Samsara City. Once a person became famous, all kinds of news would be dug up, even in ancient times. Therefore, after Yi Chen defeated Wu Huan, all news about Samsara City and Yi Chen spread throughout the great Han dynasty. And this was also the fundamental reason why the 600,000 Samsara recruits were stunned when they heard the 3 words Samsara City. They couldn't believe that they had come to Samsara City. They couldn't believe that from now on, they would follow the unparalleled Lord in their hearts, Yi Chen. And the result made them go wild with joy. They had really come to Samsara City, and they were following Yi Chen. Yi Chen listened to the Samsara recruits' discussion and couldn't help but smile. Then, he raised his hand and indicated for them to quiet down. When the 600,000 Samsara recruits quieted down, Yi Chen shouted, "You don't need to worry about your expenses. You are Samsara's soldiers, so you will enjoy the same treatment as Samsara's soldiers. If I still have to worry about my family when I'm fighting a war, wouldn't I be neglecting my duty as your lord?" After saying this, Yi Chen waved his right hand. 60 small mountains of gold coins instantly appeared in front of the 600,000 Samsara recruit. Then he continued, "You can now use the teleportation formation to teleport to your hometown and bring your family over. Even if they are brothers, sisters, or cousins, they can all be brought over. As long as they are willing to settle down in Samsara City, they can come forward and claim the cost. However, you must remember that anyone who believes in the way of peace will be excluded, because the way of peace is a devil's way. If they come to Samsara City, only death will await them." Yi Chen was willing to pay for a very simple reason. He wanted to win the hearts of the Samsara recruits and increase the population of Samsara City. Every soldier could bring 3 to 5 family members, and this was the rare case. Most of them had more than 5 family members. This was the ancient era, not the modern era where family planning was implemented. As long as there weren't special circumstances, every family would have more than 5, or even more than 10. If they brought their cousins and other relatives over, it would be hard for Samsara City's population not to soar. This was a very good deal. Besides, Yi Chen didn't lack money. As for why he emphasized that the way of peace was not allowed to enter Samsara City, The reason was very simple. The Golden Turban riot was about to begin. Yi Chen didn't want the Golden Turban of the Way of Peace to appear in Samsara City and cause chaos in Samsara City. As for the 600,000 recruits, Yi Chen didn't need to worry about the Way of Peace's spies because they were recruited by the recruitment order. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't use the recruitment order now. He would only use it after the Golden Turban riot. The moment Yi Chen said this, the 600,000 Samsara recruits looked at each other, then simultaneously bowed and said, "Brother Yi, please don't hesitate." "Yes, my lord. We won't let the Way of Peace sneak into Samsara City." Obviously, the families of these Samsara recruits weren't very poor. They knew about the Way of Peace, but they didn't agree with it. "Very good. Come forward and claim the toll. Bring your family members over." Yi Chen nodded with satisfaction and then shouted. In the next second, cheers rang out one after another, one after another. "Thank you, my lord! Long live my lord!" Soon, the soldiers came forward to claim the gold coins. After taking the toll, they all bowed to Yi Chen and said goodbye. Yi Chen looked at Zhao Yun and said, "Yunjing, go and get ready. The 50,000 soldiers who came back first will be assigned to the White Horse Army." Chapter 271. Yes, my lord. Hearing this, Zhao Yunjing bowed and left the drill ground. Yi Chen looked at Gui Yi and asked with a smile, "Feng Shao, what reward do you want?" "My lord, 30 bottles of 100 flowers wine." Gui Yi's eyes lit up and he bowed. "Good." Yi Chen laughed and said. Gui Yi was delighted. He was about to bow and thank Yi Chen when Yi Chen spoke again. "1 bottle a day and you will finish it in 30 days. Gui Yi's face froze and the corners of his mouth twitched. He bowed and said, "Yes, my lord." Gui Yi knew that Yi Chen was thinking for him, but he was a little greedy and wanted to drink more, especially the 100 flowers wine of Samsara City. It was the best wine in the world. He wanted to drink more. Yi Chen looked at Gui Yi's conflicted expression and shook his head helplessly. He then said, "Feng Shao, you should know your limits when drinking. After the nation ascends, I will not restrict you from drinking however you want." "Yes, my lord." When Gui Yi heard this, he couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. He then nodded heavily in response. Yi Chen patted Gui Yi on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry. I have not been able to get a heaven-level military advisor equipment. When I get one, I will compensate you. As for your official position, you will be the military advisor chancellor of Samsara City." Gui Yi was stunned. He bowed and said gratefully, "I swear to follow you until death." Every general in the Great Han Empire had a military advisor, and there were quite a few of them. However, there was only one military advisor. Now that Yi Chen gave this position to Gui Yi, it was obvious that he valued Gui Yi. How could Gui Yi not understand this? Gui Yi knew that there would be a lot of military advisors in Samsara City in the future. However, at this very moment, the position of military advisor had already become Gui Yi's. How could he not be moved? How could he not be moved? Yi Chen looked at the touched Gui Yi and smiled. He then looked at Zhao Meng and said, "Zhao Meng, it's time to change your weapon." Zhao Meng's eyes lit up when he heard this. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Thank you, my lord." Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. With a wave of his right hand, 58 heaven-grade weapons appeared on the ground. These were all obtained during the northern expedition. Most of them were scimitars, but there were also spears, spiked maces, and a lance. Yi Chen pointed at the heaven-grade weapon on the ground. "If there's anything you like, take it and use it. If there's nothing suitable, melt it down and make a new one. In addition, prepare a set of heaven-grade weapons for Dian Xiong. The blacksmith knows Dian Xiong's needs, so just tell him." Dian Xiong had already asked the blacksmith to forge a new weapon, but the grade was relatively low. Now that he could change it to a heaven-grade weapon, he would naturally use a heaven-grade weapon. "My lord, this..." Zhao Meng was stunned when he heard this, then he hurriedly bowed and said, "My lord, smelting a heaven-grade weapon will result in an enormous loss of materials. This general can just pick one." Yi Chen couldn't help but smile when he heard this, then he said, "It's fine. Weapons are inanimate objects. If they can't be used, they're trash. No matter how high their grade, if they're not suitable for use, how can they be used to kill the enemy?" "Yes, my lord. This general will go find a blacksmith to forge a new weapon." Zhao Meng was stunned for a moment, but when he came back to his senses, he gratefully bowed. After saying this, he picked up all the weapons on the ground and left the drilling ground. How could Zhao Meng not see that Yi Chen was thinking of Zhao Meng and Dian Xiong? If it weren't for the fact that there weren't that many heaven-grade weapons, Yi Chen would have even made armor for Zhao Meng and Dian Xiong. Yi Chen smiled as he watched the excited Zhao Meng leave. Then he looked at the Samsara soldiers and shouted, 3 days for 3 days? Let's celebrate for 3 days. All expenses will be reimbursed by the city lord manor." The moment Yi Chen said these words, the Samsara soldiers all shouted, "Long live the Lord! Long live the Lord! Long live the Lord!" Looking at the excited Samsara soldiers, Yi Chen smiled and raised his hand to signal for them to be quiet. When the soldiers quieted down, Yi Chen shouted, "Those who follow Zhao Yun, gather outside the city?" "Yes, my lord." The 50,000 Samsara soldiers' eyes lit up when they heard this. Then they bowed in unison. Their words were full of surprise and excitement. These 50,000 soldiers all knew what Yi Chen's order meant. They were going to become members of Samsara City's 2nd Special Forces. If Samsara City's strength were to be divided, the Samsara Legion would undoubtedly be the strongest. This was because the Samsara Legion was the first to be established. It was also the first to follow Yi Chen through fire and water. There was no soldier in Samsara City who didn't want to become a member of the Samsara Legion. Unfortunately, they couldn't enter. But now, Samsara City's 2nd Special Forces was about to be established. They were going to become members of the White Horse Righteous Army. From now on, they would no longer be ordinary soldiers. Their status would change. How could they not be excited and proud? The 50,000 soldiers all turned around and lined up to leave the city. The remaining Samsara soldiers all had envious gazes. They also wanted to become a member of the White Horse Righteous Army. Seeing the envious gazes of the Samsara soldiers on the drill ground, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. Then he shouted, "There's definitely more than one Special Forces in Samsara City. You're all veterans of the battlefield. After the new Special Forces are established, you'll all be serving as Dekarches, sergeants, centurions, and even Kiliarchs. Do you have the confidence to take on this position?" As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, the remaining Samsara soldiers' eyes lit up. Their breathing became heavier and heavier. In the next second, they all shouted in unison, "My lord! We have the confidence." Their voices were filled with excitement and anticipation. "Very good. Remember, if you want to take on this position, you must constantly hone your martial arts and strengthen your physique. Only then will you be able to bravely kill your enemies on the battlefield. Set an example for the future generations. Only then will you be able to convince the future generations. Do you understand?" "Understood. Understood. Understood." The voices shouted in unison again. The remaining Samsara soldiers all cheered and jumped for joy. Their future wasn't any worse than the White Horse Righteous Army, so they were excited. Moreover, they knew that this was real and not fake at all. Because what they had been promised was the great Han Empire's general who pacifies the north, the unparalleled lord who had led them to victory after victory, Yi Chen. "Very good. Let's party." Yi Chen laughed and then shouted, "Long live the Lord! Long live the Lord! Ha ha, today I'm not going home until I'm drunk. Quick, go buy beef and lamb. Let's party in the barracks today. Otherwise, we'll get drunk and disturb the civilians." Right, let's go buy beef and lamb. Chapter 272. Yi Chen looked at the excited Samsara soldiers and smiled. He then looked at Gui and said, Feng, let's go outside. Let's go outside the city and witness the birth of the White Horse loyal followers. My lord, we should arrange for people to receive the incoming citizens. Gui hurriedly bowed and said. Yi Chen paused for a moment and then realized that Zhao Heng had been sent to develop the expedition village. The position of deputy governor of Samsara City was still vacant. Zhao Heng used to be in charge of this matter. Now that Zhao Heng was gone, no one was in charge. The corner of Yi Chen's mouth twitched when he thought of this. Damn it, he still had too few subordinates. After this trip to Luoyang, he had to plunder some of them. Thinking of this, Yi Chen let out a long sigh. He then looked at Gui and said, Feng Shao, call me Zhu over. Yes, my lord. My lord. Gui nodded, bowed, and left the place after he finished speaking. Not long after, Gui returned with Mi Zhu. As soon as Mi Zhu saw him, he bowed and said, Zhu pays his respects to my lord. Yi Chen smiled and nodded. He then said, Zizhong, the position of deputy governor of Samsara City is vacant. Are you willing to take up this position? Thank you for your trust, my lord. I am willing. Mi Zhu hurriedly bowed and said, Good. From now on, Zizhong is officially the deputy governor of Samsara City. Yi Chen laughed and said, Congratulations on becoming the deputy governor of Samsara City, brother Zizhong. Gui smiled and cupped his fist. Mi Zhu hurriedly cupped his fists and said, Thank you. Yi Chen looked at Mi Zhu, who was neither arrogant nor impatient. He nodded with satisfaction and said, Zizhong, there will be at least 3 million people coming to Samsara City. You must register the new citizens within a day. In addition, speed up the construction of houses. Call the first 50,000 soldiers to gather outside the city. When Mi Zhu heard this, he nodded heavily. Then, he bowed and replied, Yes, my lord. This matter should not be delayed, so I will take my leave first. Okay, go ahead. Yi Chen couldn't help but smile when he heard this. He then nodded and said. Mi Zhu bowed again and cupped his fists towards Gui before hurriedly leaving the drill ground. Brother Zizhong's abilities are extraordinary. I'm sure you'll be able to resolve this matter very quickly. Gui looked at Yi Chen and said with a smile. Indeed, Zizhong's ability is indeed very high. However, the construction of the house and the registration of the register are not things that he can control. Yi Chen paused for a moment, and then his face stiffened. When Gui saw Yi Chen's expression, he couldn't help but smile. He then bowed and asked, My lord, are you thinking that brother Zizhong might have misunderstood and used him? Yes, I didn't think about it before, but now I realize that if Zizhong didn't transfer craftsmen from Su province, it would be impossible to complete this task. Yi Chen sighed and then said, My lord, don't worry. When brother Zizhong heard that Samsara City had a new 600,000 elite soldiers and that they were bringing their families to Samsara City, he had already sent people to Su province to transfer craftsmen and servants over to help you solve this small problem. Gui bowed and said. When Yi Chen heard this, he was stunned for a moment and then his heart warmed. This was because Mi Zhu didn't mention this matter at all. It was obvious that Mi Zhu wanted to downplay this matter and didn't want to take credit for it from Yi Chen. It was so easy to have a good subordinate. When he thought of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile and then said, Zizhong is loyal. When he succeeds and achieves his hegemony, I will not treat him unfairly. The same goes for Feng Shao. Jia, thank you, my lord. Gui heard this and bowed with a smile on his face. Yi Chen laughed and then said, Let's go outside the city and witness the birth of the white horses. Yes, my lord. My lord. Gui chuckled and bowed. Then, he followed Yi Chen out of the city. Outside Samsara City. As soon as Yi Chen arrived, he saw 100,000 pure white horses standing quietly in the distance. 50,000 soldiers were already standing beside the white horses, waiting quietly. Zhao Yun stood at the city gate and looked at the 50,000 soldiers and 100,000 pure white horses in the distance. When he saw Yi Chen, Zhao Yun hurriedly bowed and said, "Greetings, my lord." "Greetings, my lord." The 50,000 soldiers all knelt on one knee and said loudly. Yi Chen nodded and then looked at Zhao Yun and asked, "Yunjing, is there a better white horse among the Wuhuan horses that we seized?" Yi Chen saw that the white horse beside Zhao Yun was still the same one, but it was only a fine one. Zhao Yun heard this and was slightly stunned. Then he bowed and said, "My lord, there is a good pure white horse, but there is only one." "Only one? Why not?" Yi Chen was slightly stunned and then asked in surprise. "My lord, I already have the profession change order of the white horse. How can I be so greedy?" Zhao Yun heard this and hurriedly bowed and said. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but stare at Zhao Yun and then said, "Yunjing, don't say this again. No matter how good a horse is, it still depends on who is riding it. Besides, you are the commander of the white horse. How can you not have a good horse?" After saying this, Yi Chen looked at the Samsara soldiers on duty at the city gates and ordered, "Go, bring that horse over." "Yes, my lord." "My lord." The soldier hurriedly bowed in response, and then hurriedly left the city gate. Not long after, the soldiers brought over a snow-white horse that didn't have a single strand of hair on it. After seeing the snow-white horse, Yi Chen couldn't help but be surprised. This was because the horse had a strong physique, and its eyes were bright and full of expression. It was obvious that it wasn't an ordinary horse. This was a jade lion of the night. That's right, it was a jade lion of the night. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. Then he looked at the excited Zhao Yun and said, "Yunjing, this is undoubtedly a jade lion of the night. From now on, it will be your mount." "Thank you for your gift, my lord." When Zhao Yun heard this, he was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. After saying this, he brought the jade lion of the night over. Seeing Zhao Yun's overjoyed expression, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. At this moment, the soldiers who went to bring their families back to Samsara city ran over in twos and threes. This was because they knew that the first 50,000 soldiers who returned to Samsara city would become a member of the White Horse Militia, the second special corps of Samsara city. Therefore, when they heard this, they didn't say a word and ran away. They were afraid that they would miss the opportunity if they were too slow. The soldiers ran to the city gates one by one. After greeting Yi Chen, they ran to the white horses in the distance, and each chose a white horse. Time passed slowly. When 100,000 Samsara soldiers appeared beside the 100,000 white horses outside the city, Yi Chen looked at Zhao Yun and said, "Yunjing, you can begin?" "Yes, my lord." Zhao Yun bowed and answered. Then he took out the class change order of the Special Corps, the White Horse Militia, and chose to use it without hesitation. In an instant, the light shone brightly and enveloped the 100,000 Samsara soldiers and Zhao Yun. A completely different aura instantly rose from the army of 100,000. It was austere, majestic, and iron-blooded. Then it became stronger and stronger. At this moment, Zhao Yun suddenly opened his eyes and mounted the horse. He waved his right hand and the silver spear of dragon bile appeared instantly. Swish! The 100,000 Samsara soldiers also mounted their horses at this moment. Zhao Yun glanced at the 100,000 Samsara soldiers, then raised the silver spear of dragon bile and shouted, "White Horse Militia!" Bang! The 100,000 Samsara soldiers beat their chests with their right fists and shouted, "Where justice is, life and death will follow. The White Horse Militia is our witness." The vow of the 100,000 Samsara soldiers rose instantly and resounded through the world. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for forming the Special Corps, the White Horse Militia. Chapter 273. White Horse Righteousness, One and Only Special Forces Grade. SSS Commander, Zhao Yun. Number of players, 100,000. Army Specialty, righteousness follows in life and death. The white horse righteousness is our witness. When the system notification ended, Yi Chen could not help but raise his eyebrows. Zhao Yun is right. The white horse righteousness that was supposed to be SS has really been upgraded to SSS. At this moment, the system's world announcement sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for being the second to establish a special force, White Horse Righteousness. Special reward, 1 million reputation points. The 3 consecutive world announcements instantly blew up the entire world channel. What the F***CK? God Yi Chen, you're too awesome. How long has it been? Another world announcement. Mother***Ker, how are we supposed to live? Another special force. Since the start of the game, there have only been 2 special forces, and they're both Yi Chen's. I strongly request the system to restrict Yi Chen. There's no way to play this game anymore. Idiot, Boss Yi Chen is in your way. First, he didn't steal your kills. Second, he didn't invade your territory. You really think you're some big shot? Don't bother with this idiot. Boss Yi Chen won't bully others. He's different from those pretentious gang leaders, and mayors. That's right. No matter how awesome Yi Chen is, I'm not worried. I just hope that Boss Yi Chen can kill all those pretentious guys. That way we can play the game properly and not worry about being bullied. What I F***king hope the most is that people like Yi Chen, as well as those leaders, mayors, and so on, die. That's even better. Ha ha ha, brother, you've hit the nail on the head. If they die, this world will be ours. Stop comparing. Don't you know what the White Horse Righteousness is? Now that you mention it, I remember. Wasn't the White Horse Righteousness created by Gongsun Zan? How did it become Yi Chen's? Could it be that Gongsun Zan was also recruited by Yi Chen? F***CK. Are you kidding me? He's the future overlord of Yuzhou province. F***CK. I'm waiting for Gongsun Zan to deal with Yi Chen. F***CK. That's what I'm thinking too. F***CK. Only the natives in the game have the ability to resist Yi Chen. If Yi Chen subdues Gongsun Zan, wouldn't Yuzhou province become Yi Chen's property? Impossible. If Yi Chen had accepted Gongsun Zan, there would have been a worldwide announcement. If there was no worldwide announcement, it would mean that Yi Chen did not accept Gongsun Zan at all. But where the hell did this white horse justice come from? F***CK. Like I said, Yi Chen definitely knows the secret of the game. F***CK. Since the beginning of the game, Yi Chen has been constantly making worldwide announcements. He's like a worldwide announcement machine. F***CK. I also want to know the secret of the game. Boss Yi Chen, since you're so awesome, there's no point in keeping the secret. Just tell us so that we can quickly improve our strength. The shifters outside the real world are getting fiercer and fiercer. We can't keep up with their improvement speed. As long as Boss Yi Chen is willing to tell us the secret of the game, we will all acknowledge you as our boss. That's right, that's right. As long as Boss Yi Chen is willing to tell us the secret, we humans will become weaker and weaker than the shifters. At that time, we will all be eaten by the shifters. Now that the protective shield is getting weaker and weaker, the safe cities won't last for long. As long as Boss Yi Chen is willing to tell us the secret, we will all become Boss Yi Chen's subordinate. No matter what Boss Yi Chen does, we will fully support him. That's right, Boss Yi Chen. For the future of humanity, you can't be selfish. The world channel was very lively. From the initial shock to guessing, it became a demand for Yi Chen to tell them the secret of the game. Yi Chen looked at the world channel that was constantly flooding the screen and curled his lips in disdain. These people spoke in a dignified manner and even lowered themselves. They even said that they were willing to be his subordinates, but in reality, they were doing it for themselves. They wanted to become even more awesome and powerful. The shifters' strength increased very quickly, but the humans were not slow either. If they worked hard to kill monsters and level up, they wouldn't be too far behind. If they were really thinking for the future of humanity, they should work together to clear all kinds of large-scale villages and complete large-scale storyline missions. For example, the Northern Expedition could drop weapons, cultivation techniques, village creation orders, and even army class change orders, etc. This was something that all the players already knew. Attacking these places would allow them to obtain good items and quickly increase their strength. Although their levels were low, they had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. With some strategies, they would be able to obtain many good items. But in the end, this situation did not appear at all. The slogan was loud and clear. For the sake of humanity, but no one cooperated. In the end, it was all nonsense. Because they were selfish and were not willing to sacrifice their own interests. They were afraid that the things would be taken by others and that they would end up with nothing. This was the reality. Yi Chen had seen too much of the despicable, shameless, and dirty nature of humanity in his previous life. He was very clear on this point. Therefore, Yi Chen would not be swayed by those loud slogans on the World Channel, saying that humanity would be destroyed, saying that it was for the sake of humanity. It was all nonsense. Whether it was in reality or in the game, there was only one law, the law of the jungle. If Yi Chen became weak or was no longer the strongest, then there would only be one outcome for Yi Chen. He would be attacked by the masses and then have everything taken away. Yi Chen naturally knew this. Therefore, how could Yi Chen be a good person? There was only one thing Yi Chen wanted to do, and that was to constantly become stronger and stronger. He wanted to be strong enough to make all living beings fear him and feel despair. These people, in the beginning, used a forceful attitude to force him to reveal the secret. Now they are using a soft approach. How laughable! Thinking of this, Yi Chen smiled coldly. Then, he looked at the white horse righteous followers. His mood immediately improved. Swoosh! Zhao Yun was leading the white horse righteous followers. They all dismounted and knelt on one knee in front of Yi Chen. We pledge our lives to follow the Lord. The soldiers of the white horse righteous followers shouted in unison. The shocking oath instantly resounded throughout the entire reincarnation valley. Looking at the soldiers of the white horse righteous followers with different mental states, Yi Chen nodded in satisfaction. Then, he shouted, "Go celebrate. For 3 days, all expenses are waived. Long live the Lord! Long live the Lord! Long live the Lord!" Deafening cheers immediately sounded. When Yi Chen saw this, he could not help but smile. Then, he looked at Zhao Yun and said, "Yunjing, in 3 days, intensify the training of the white horse righteous followers. When the diamond equipment is completed, replace it. If you have any requests, feel free to let me know. You can find me Zhu to solve them." "Yes, Lord." When Zhao Yun heard this, his expression instantly became extremely serious. He then bowed and replied loudly. Chapter 274. Yi Chen looked at Zhao Yun's solemn expression and nodded with a smile. He then looked at Guo Yi and said, "Feng Shao, I will go to Luoyang to meet His Majesty tomorrow. After that, I will wander around the great Han dynasty for 7 to 20 days. Then, I will return to Samsara City. During this time, I will leave Samsara City to you and Yunjing." Samsara City had a strong foundation, but they had to be wary of small fries. To Yi Chen, small fries were the lord players with ulterior motives. Among the players, the individual players were already scared of Yi Chen and would not have any ideas about Samsara City. However, the Lord players were an exception because they did not have to fight in person. They only had to send troops. When Yi Chen went to the northern Wuhuan expedition and brought the spoils of war to the reincarnation forest, there were people following Zhao Meng's group. However, they were all killed by Zhao Meng. As for why they were following them, it was because they wanted to confirm the exact location of Samsara City. It was obvious that they wanted to confirm the location of Samsara City. Someone wanted to attack Samsara City. It did not matter if they dared to attack Samsara City. What was important was that Yi Chen already knew about it. How could he not take precautions? Although Yi Chen was not afraid, Yi Chen was not so arrogant that he would not take precautions. Moreover, the road in the reincarnation forest had already begun to be paved. It would not be long before it was officially opened to the outside world. When that time came, Samsara City would officially enter the player's sight. Those who wanted to attack Samsara City might start to act immediately, or they might continue to hold back and wait for the right time. Regardless of which it was, Yi Chen did not care. As long as they dared to show up, Yi Chen would mercilessly destroy everything they had. To Yi Chen, anyone who dared to attack him was an enemy. Yi Chen only had one way to deal with an enemy: kill without mercy. However, he still had to take precautions. No matter what, he could not give small fries a chance to attack him. Jiating will do our best. We will not give small fries a chance to attack us. Guiyi nodded and bowed. Yi Chen patted Guiyi's shoulder and walked towards the city lord's mansion. Yi Chen was leading the troops outside and was not at home for a long time. Now that he had some free time, he naturally wanted to spend it with his woman. City lord's mansion, back residence. As soon as Yi Chen arrived, he saw Zhao Yu Diaochan, Kai Mei Mi Zhen, and Huang Wan who had changed her clothes. The 5 women chatted happily until Yi Chen walked towards the pavilion. Only then did the 5 women notice Yi Chen's arrival. In the next second, the 5 women all stood up and sweetly called out, "Husband." Yi Chen nodded with a smile, then asked, "Is everything ready?" Zhao Yu Diaochan, Kai Mei Mi Zhen, and Huang Wan looked at each other and then said in unison, "Everything is ready. Don't resist. I'll take you to my world. If you want to go there in the future, just use your mind. But remember, it's not like here. Don't leave the city." Yi Chen nodded and then said. Yi Chen's tone was a little serious, and the 5 women were all stunned. Then, they nodded in unison and said, "Yes, husband." Yi Chen looked at the 5 women's obedient appearance and couldn't help but smile. He then held Zhao Yu's hand. Diaochan, Kai Mei Mi Zhen, and Huang Wan also held each other's hands at this time. When Yi Chen saw that the 5 girls had grabbed onto the items, he immediately went offline with a thought. Along with Yi Chen, Zhao Yu Diaochan, Kai Mei Mi Zhen, and Huang Wan disappeared. The real world, reincarnation city, city lord's mansion. 5 balls of light appeared out of thin air. In the next second, Zhao Yu Diaochan, Kai Mei Mi Zhen, and Huang Wan appeared in the hall. Awo! An incomparably joyful tiger's roar instantly sounded. The 5 women opened their eyes and were stunned. Then, they saw a fiery red shadow pounce into Zhao Yu's arms. "Little tiger." Zhao Yu's pleasantly surprised voice immediately sounded. She then hugged Yanhu's huge body and rubbed Yanhu's head. Diaochan looked at Yanhu's huge body and couldn't help but be stunned. Then, she said with incomparable astonishment, "This is husband's spirit pet that big sister mentioned, Yanhu. He's grown so big." Awo! At this time, Yanhu raised his head and let out an incomparably proud cry. No matter how one looked at it, it was showing off that it was the strongest. With a creak, the door to the diamond-ranked gaming cabin opened. Yi Chen then stood up and walked out of the gaming cabin. When the 5 women saw Yi Chen, they all smiled and called out sweetly, "Husband." Yi Chen chuckled and nodded. Then, he came to the 5 women's side and said apologetically, "This is my world. This world also has reincarnation city. It's just that it doesn't have a population. It's just that it's a bit deserted. It's been hard on you." What Yi Chen said was the truth. In the real world, Reincarnation City was indeed deserted. There wasn't even a single resident. When the 5 women came to the real world, there were no maids to take care of them. They had to do everything themselves. As for using the two-world stone on the maids, Yi Chen had thought of it before. However, he immediately rejected this idea. Before he had the power to look down on everything, everything should be based on increasing his strength. Wasting the two-world stone on the maids was completely unacceptable. And this was also why Yi Chen felt guilty towards Zhao Yu Diaochan, Kai Mei Mi Zhen, and Huang Weiner. After hearing Yi Chen's apologetic words, Zhao Yu gently shook her head. Then, she said affectionately, I'm already very satisfied to be able to come to husband's world and accompany husband all the time. That's right, husband. As long as I can accompany husband, so what if it's a bit deserted? Moreover, this way, my sisters and I can be alone with husband. When Diaochan said this, her small face instantly turned red. Then, she lowered her head. Husband, we don't care about this. Husband, don't feel guilty. This isn't what we want to see. At this time, Kai Mei held Yi Chen's hand and said very seriously. Huang Weiner and Mi Zhen nodded vigorously and then said in unison, Husband, we're already very satisfied to be able to come to husband's world. What we want is to be able to see husband all the time and stay by husband's side. When Yi Chen heard the affectionate words of the 5 women and looked at their affectionate and serious eyes, a warm current rose in his heart wave after wave. If it were women in the real world, they would have already started fighting. Thinking of this, Yi Chen let out a long breath and then said solemnly, After the goal is achieved, I'll take you to travel the world. Okay. The 5 women softly replied in unison. When Yi Chen heard the clear voices of the 5 women, his heart couldn't help but tremble. Then, he kissed each of them. After kissing, Yi Chen waved his right hand and the small pool he took from the karst cave instantly appeared. When the 5 women saw the small pool, they were all stunned. Yi Chen said with a smile, This is the Millennium Stalactite. Before you came to this world, I couldn't give it to you. Now that you're all here, I can't not use it. Chapter 275. Zhao Yu Diaochan, Kai Mei Mi Zhen, and Huang Weiner were stunned. They then shouted, 1,000-year stalactite milk. Clearly, the 5 girls knew about the existence of the 1,000-year stalactite milk. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so surprised. Yi Chen smiled and nodded. Then, he waved his right hand and 5,000-year stalactites flew out toward the 5 girls. Seeing this, the 5 women opened their mouths and swallowed it without hesitation. The reason for that was because they knew that they had to follow Yi Chen closely. Otherwise, they would be left far behind. Whether it was Zhao Yu, who had followed Yi Chen in the beginning, or Huang Weiner, who had only followed Yi Chen until now, they were both clear about this. Samsara City was built with a god-level village creation token. It gathered the providence of heaven and earth. In the future, the entire country would ascend. They didn't know about the world after ascension, but they knew that there would be no weaklings in the world after ascension. At this moment, none of them had reached the mortal evolution state. Their constitution was also mortal. Even if they ascended with Yi Chen, they would still become flower vases. Because of their characteristics, the help they could provide to Yi Chen would become weaker as Yi Chen became stronger. They didn't want to be flower vases. They wanted to be useful to Yi Chen. Therefore, they also desired to improve their power. Only when their strength increased would their characteristics continue to be of help to Yi Chen. Now that the 1,000-year stalactite milk could help them, they naturally wanted it. Moreover, it was their husband, Yi Chen, who gave them the 1,000-year stalactite milk. Why would they be embarrassed? Yi Chen could naturally see what the 5 women were thinking, but he would not point it out, nor would he try to persuade them. Instead, he would support them. In the ancient world, the shaman and demon races were very powerful. The stronger they were, the safer they would be. Even Yi Chen was no exception. Therefore, Yi Chen fully approved of the 5 women's desire to become stronger. Soon, the 5 girls opened their eyes and looked at Yi Chen. They called out sweetly, "Thank you, husband." Yi Chen smiled and nodded. Then, he said, "Wait a moment. I'll bring you guys out of the city to have a look." And then, hearing this, the girls all smiled and nodded in response. They were curious about the real world and wanted to see what Yi Chen's world was like. Yi Chen waved his right hand, and the Spirit Pet Aptitude Advancement Scroll, Immortal, appeared in Yi Chen's hand. After seeing the scroll in Yi Chen's hand, Yenhu's two tiger eyes instantly widened. He hurriedly ran to Yi Chen's side and used his tiger head, which was one size bigger, to intimately rub against Yi Chen's trousers. Obviously, Yenhu saw the benefits of the Spiritual Pet Aptitude Advancement Scroll, Immortal, at a glance. Otherwise, why would he try so hard to please Yi Chen? Looking at Yenhu, who was trying to please him, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. He took out the Spirit Pet Aptitude Advancement Scroll, Immortal, with his right hand. In the next second, the Spirit Pet Aptitude Advancement Scroll, Immortal, turned into a ball of white light. It rushed to Yenhu and wrapped him up. Roar! A tiger's roar filled with excitement instantly rang out. As time passed, a strong pressure rose from Yenhu's body. It covered Samsara City and spread into the distance. At the same time, the demon tribe soldiers who were hiding around Samsara City were awakened. They logged off from the game world and stared in the direction of Samsara City with their beastly eyes wide open. They were the demon soldiers who were lucky enough to escape last time. They didn't participate in the siege of Samsara City. Although the Black Tiger Gang, which was uprooted by Yi Chen, used human blood to attract the demon soldiers, they weren't stupid enough to attract the demon beasts from all directions. If they did, the Black Tiger Gang wouldn't be able to escape. Because of this, there were still some demon soldiers around Samsara City who weren't attracted by the human blood. At this moment, they were all agitated. This was because there was a terrifying pressure coming from Reincarnation City. It was getting stronger and stronger. What's there? Why is it so strong? Just the pressure makes me scared. Damn it. Why am I scared? Damn it, what is this? Is it a demon expert? Why is there a murderous intent in the pressure? Bastard, you're strong. I admit defeat. Why do you have to release this pressure? Do you think I'm scared of you? The Monster Clan soldiers all shouted and cursed in shock. After a few breaths, the demon soldiers' disbelief turned into fear, and then into terror. The pressure was getting stronger and stronger. It was so strong that their souls started to tremble. In the next second, the demon soldiers left their nests with fear in their eyes. Soon, the monster soldiers appeared outside Samsara City in droves. After they appeared, they didn't stop at all. They didn't even look at the terrifying Samsara City. Instead, they all ran away from Samsara City. As they ran, they gritted their teeth and cursed. Damn it! It's an immortal beast. This pressure is from an immortal beast. It's not from the demon race. A black bear running away suddenly remembered something and cursed angrily. Damn it! How can there be immortal beasts in this world? Aren't spirit beasts the most common? A rabbit roared with a ferocious face. Who the hell knows? Hurry up and run. If we don't run, we'll all die. When I become stronger, I'll come back and take care of this damned immortal beast. And that damned number 1 human, Yi Chen. The pressure from the immortal beast comes from his lousy city. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and run. That damned pressure is getting stronger again. In the real world, Samsara City, city governor's palace, roar. An earth-shaking roar sounded and spread into the distance. The strong pressure also reached its peak at this moment. The light dissipated and a new Yenhu appeared in front of Yi Chen. Seeing Yenhu's completely changed appearance, Yi Chen could not help but be stunned. This is White Tiger. That's not right. Yenhu's body and head had changed from a fiery red color to a black and white color. His ears and foreclaws were still the same fiery red color. At this thought, Yi Chen looked at Yenhu's attribute panel. Yenhu, Immortal Beast, can grow, skills. White Tiger 7 Slaughter Technique, Wind Riding Technique, Fire riding technique skills. 1 Fireball 2. Prairie Fire 3. Tiger's Roar 4. Cloud Riding 5 Sealed. 6 Sealed. Owner. Yi Chen. Looking at this, Yi Chen raised his eyebrows. Not only had it become an immortal beast, it had also comprehended 3 cultivation techniques and a new skill, and it could still continue to grow. Not bad, not bad, the stronger the better, the crazier the better. Chapter 276. At this moment, Yanhu opened his 2 tiger eyes and ran to Yi Chen's side. He used his tiger head to rub against Yi Chen's trousers. At this moment, Yanhu was very excited because he had become an immortal beast. He was very grateful to his master, Yi Chen, for everything that he had brought to him. Although he was still young, he was not stupid. He was very clear about one thing. If he had been left to develop slowly, not only would his strength not increase so quickly, even becoming an immortal beast would depend on luck. During this period of growth, there was a high chance that he would encounter all kinds of dangers. But now, with Yi Chen's help, he had become an immortal beast in a short period of time. He had become an immortal beast that many spiritual beasts could not achieve in their entire lives. Looking at the extremely excited Yanhu, Yi Chen could not help but smile. After which, he rubbed Yanhu's head and opened his mouth to speak. Since you've become an immortal beast, you can try high-grade spirit stones. But don't eat too much. Even if you're an immortal beast, you'll still explode if you eat too much. Understand? Hearing this, Yanhu's eyes lit up and saliva flowed out of his mouth. He then nodded his head vigorously. Looking at Yanhu's greedy look, he shook his head helplessly. He then looked at the girls and said, "Let's go out for a walk. With Yanhu's suppression, there won't be any demon clan around Reincarnation City for a while." The girls nodded and followed Yi Chen out of the city. The real world was filled with towering trees and weeds that were as tall as a person. It was like a primeval forest. However, unlike a real primeval forest, there were no dried leaves that had accumulated over countless years on the ground. The scenery in the real world was more primeval compared to the game world. But in this primeval world, there was a strong sense of dissonance. Because of the demon clan's existence and the humans' retreat, even if the land was covered by trees, it could not hide the torrents hidden in the dark. When the torrents exploded, the music of death would play. Yi Chen took the girls around the real world for a while before he brought them back to Samsara City and then back to the game world. The next day, Yi Chen dressed himself up with Fan Jin's help. Then, he ate breakfast with the girls and went to the front yard. City Lord's mansion, living room. As soon as Yi Chen arrived, he saw Gui Yi, Zhao Yun, Kai Yin, Mi Zhu, Dian Xiong, and Zhao Meng waiting in the hall. "Greetings, Lord." Everyone bowed and greeted when they saw Yi Chen arrive. Yi Chen chuckled and nodded his head. Then, he walked to the main seat and sat down. He looked at Mi Zhu and said, "Zizhong, how are the families of the Samsara recruits going?" Hearing Yi Chen's inquiry, Mi Zhu hurriedly got up, bowed and said, "Reporting to my lord, the families of the recruits have been registered and have moved into the new houses. The land will be divided today." When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but be surprised. More than 3 million people needed to be registered and the houses needed to be built in one day. This was a lot of work. It had only been half a day since Yi Chen issued the order yesterday. In Yi Chen's opinion, it would be good if Mi Zhu could complete the task by 50 to 60%. He didn't expect Mi Zhu to finish the job of settling the civilians. Mi Zhu probably moved all the servants in Shuzhou City to Samsara City. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but sigh. Then, he looked at Mi Zhu and said, "Zizhong, thank you for your hard work. I will remember your contribution. Being able to share my lord's burden is the happiest thing in Zhu's life." Zhu wouldn't feel tired. When Mi Zhu heard this, his heart warmed and he bowed solemnly. He worked so hard for Yi Chen because he wanted to be recognized by Yi Chen. After all, he was a newcomer and had just followed Yi Chen. He hadn't made any contributions yet. Naturally, he wanted to do something as soon as possible. He wanted to prove that he wasn't a useless person and that he was qualified to be the vice-castellan of Samsara City. And Yi Chen's remember undoubtedly told me Zhu that Yi Chen recognized his contribution and his ability. For me Zhu, this was the biggest reward. Because only by being recognized by Yi Chen, his efforts wouldn't be in vain and his position would be stable. This was human nature. Yi Chen was clear about it and understood it. How could Yi Chen not see that his subordinates were loyal to him? Seeing Mi Zhu's solemn expression, Yi Chen nodded with a smile. Then, he looked at Dian Xiong and said, Dian Xiong, from today onwards, speed up the training of Samsara's recruits. My lord, I'll go with you to Luoyang. Otherwise, I might try to take advantage of you again. Dian Xiong heard this and was startled. Then, he hastily bowed. Dian Xiong was Yi Chen's guard commander. He naturally wanted to stay by Yi Chen's side and fulfill his duty as a guard commander. Last time, when Yi Chen went to Luoyang, quite a few players tried to take advantage of Yi Chen. Dian Xiong had personally seen it. Yi Chen looked at the worried Dian Xiong and couldn't help but feel a warmth in his heart. Then, he said, It's fine. In this world, there isn't anyone who can hurt me. You just need to focus on training. Samsara's recruits have never been on the battlefield before. If you don't speed up the training, how will you become a force on the battlefield in the future? Hearing this, Dian Xiong suddenly felt conflicted. Protecting Yi Chen was Dian Xiong's duty. But if Samsara's recruits weren't trained and Yi Chen took them to the battlefield, what if their mental fortitude wasn't up to standard? That would be a huge mess. Even though Dian Xiong wanted to protect Yi Chen more, he couldn't just not train the recruit. In Samsara City, Zhao Yun was the best person to train with. However, Zhao Yun was about to train the white horse, so Dian Xiong had to take care of the rest. At this moment, Guo stood up and looked towards Yi Chen. He solemnly bowed and said, My lord is the lord of Samsara. How can there be no one protecting you? If I may be so bold, I implore my lord to bring General Zhao Meng and the Samsara Legion. Hearing this, Dian Xiong's conflicted feelings disappeared. He looked towards Yi Chen and bowed. I implore my lord to bring General Zhao Meng and the Samsara Legion. This lowly officer, General, earnestly requests my lord to bring along General Zhao Meng and the Samsara Corps. Kai Yin, Mi Zhu, and Zhao Yunjing simultaneously bowed. When Yi Chen saw this, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He then laughed and said, How can I not know that you are worried about my safety? However, in this world, there is no existence that can harm your lord. Yi Chen's lips twitched when he saw that they were still bowing and refusing to get up. He then continued, You can bring the Samsara Legion, but not Zhao Meng. Yi Chen could see and understand that his subordinates were worried about his safety. And now Yi Chen was even more aware of one thing. It was impossible for him to not bring anyone to Luoyang. Who knows, his subordinates might even try to persuade him later. The reason was simple. Yi Chen was the lord of Samsara City. He was the lord who led them to establish their hegemony. Everyone could die, but Yi Chen couldn't. He couldn't be harmed at all. After all, the path of peace had started their large-scale operation. Danger was everywhere. Furthermore, there were also the lords who were eyeing them covetously. Guo Yi, Zhao Yun, and the others were naturally unwilling to see Yi Chen go out alone. Chapter 277. My lord Zhao Meng hurriedly bowed when he heard that Yi Chen wanted him to stay. But he was interrupted by Yi Chen before he could finish. Zhao Meng, listen up. Zhao Meng was stunned for a moment. Then he got down on one knee and replied loudly, Yes, my lord. Yi Chen looked at the dumbfounded Zhao Meng and smiled. Then, he shouted, From now on, you'll be in charge of 100,000 soldiers. It's up to you how you're going to use the equipment and the types of soldiers. Are you confident? Zhao Meng was stunned when he heard this. He had not expected that Yi Chen would not ask him to follow, but to actually ask him to be the commander, and the commander of 100,000 soldiers at that. This was something that he had never even dreamed of. Zhao Meng, are you confident? At this moment, Yi Chen's eyes suddenly widened as he shouted, Yes, I'm confident. Zhao Meng roared in a choked voice. At this moment, Zhao Meng was very excited and moved. He had become the commander of 100,000 soldiers, and Yi Chen had put him in an important position. In fact, Zhao Meng was very talented and had a good aptitude. In addition, Zhao Meng had taken Qiu Liju's general soul. Not only had he become an emperor-level general, but he had also become a first-rate historical general. It was not difficult for Zhao Meng to command 100,000 soldiers. Yi Chen did not have so many soldiers under his command. Zhao Meng had two first-rate historical generals, Zhao Yun and Dian Xiong. There was no need to let Zhao Meng command the soldiers. Yi Chen looked at the excited Zhao Meng and nodded with satisfaction. Then he said, Very well. From now on, you'll be the second commander of Samsara City. You must train the soldiers with all your might. Yes, my lord. My lord. Zhao Meng tried his best to calm himself down before replying loudly. Yi Chen nodded with a smile. Then he looked at Kai Yin and said, Father-in-law, Samsara City has gained more than 3 million people. Many of them are children. I'll leave it to you to enlighten them. Yes, my lord. After hearing Yi Chen's order, Kai Yin hurriedly bowed and replied. Yi Chen nodded and then looked at Zhao Yun and Gui. He said, I'll leave the defense of Samsara City to you. Yunjing, don't slack off. Train the white horse. Yes, my lord. My lord. Zhao Yunjing and Gui bowed in unison. Yi Chen smiled, then he got up and walked outside. Zhao Yun, Gui and the others hurriedly sent Yi Chen. The moment Yi Chen arrived at the transportation formation, he saw the fully armored Samsara Legion waiting for him. There was also the Pegasus, Shao Jin, at the front of the Samsara Legion. Whoosh! The Samsara Legion all got down on one knee and loudly bowed, Greetings, my lord. Seeing this, Yi Chen understood that the Samsara Legion had been arranged to be here. Gui bowed and said with a smile, My lord, please don't blame us. Hearing this, Yi Chen glared at Gui. Then he looked at the Samsara Legion and shouted, Let's go to Luoyang. Yes, my lord. Then they shouted in unison. In the next second, the Samsara Legion entered the teleportation portal. With a flash of light they disappeared in batches. Neigh! A thunderous neigh sounded. The golden horse, Shao Jin, came to Yi Chen and gently rubbed its head against Yi Chen. Yi Chen smiled and patted Shao Jin's head. Then he mounted the horse. When the Samsara Legion finished their teleportation, Yi Chen stepped into the teleportation portal. Gui, Zhao Yun, Kai Yin, Mi Zhu, and Zhao Meng bowed in unison and said, Farewell, my lord. Yi Chen nodded and disappeared. 50 miles outside Luoyang. At the teleportation portal. As soon as Yi Chen appeared, a shriek reached his ears. General He Xian. Stop beating him, stop beating him, ouch! When Yi Chen heard this, he immediately opened his eyes and was stunned. Not far away, the little eunuch, San Detsi, was being beaten up by a young man. The surrounding eunuchs were all trembling as they were surrounded by a group of family generals. They did not dare to move at all. F***CK. What's going on? Wait. He Xian seems to be He Jin's son. Just as Yi Chen thought of this, He Xian's angry roar sounded. I'm going to beat you to death. How dare you block my way? Do you know that you have a military order? Bang, bang, bang. The sound of punches and kicks sounded again. General He Xian, this is a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. I'm following His Majesty's orders to welcome General Ping Bei. I'm not here to stop General He Xian. San Detsi screamed while doing his best to protect his vitals. The little eunuch, San Detsi, was beaten black and blue. However, he did not dare to resist and only dared to block. It was true that he was a eunuch, but he was not like Zhongli. If he dared to resist, he would end up very miserably. At this moment, the little eunuch, San Detsi, saw Yi Chen and hurriedly screamed for help. "General Yi, save me! Save me!" He Xian suddenly threw out a heavy punch and instantly smashed it on San Detsi's head. With a bang sound, San Detsi instantly fainted. When Yi Chen saw this, he narrowed his eyes and a cold glint flashed past his eyes. He came to set a trap for me. The plan was not bad and the idea was good. Unfortunately, the method was too stupid. He Xian did not even look at San Detsi as he turned to look at Yi Chen. Then, he cupped his fists and said with a laugh, "Ha ha, General Yi, nice to meet you." He Xian's face was filled with arrogance. He looked like he was greeting, but his eyes were filled with contempt. He was He Jin's son and had a noble status. No one in Luoyang dared to offend him. Even if he was unhappy with eunuchs, he still dared to teach them a lesson. Of course, he did not dare to do anything to people like Zhongli, but he had taught many ordinary eunuchs a lesson. This time, he came here with the goal of helping He Jin vent his anger. It was all because Yi Chen had slaughtered He Jin's henchmen and humiliated him. He even made He Jin fork out countless money, reducing his pocket money. In order to take revenge on Yi Chen, he had specially gotten someone to study Yi Chen. Later on, he discovered that Yi Chen's relationship with Zhang Li was unclear. He appeared to be on Zhang Li's side, but none of the civil and military officials thought so. Therefore, after learning that Yi Chen was coming to Luoyang to meet Lu Hong today, he set up such a trap. Regardless of whether Yi Chen took action or not, the final victor would be him. If he took action, Yi Chen's reputation would be tarnished. When that happened, all the civil and military officials in the court would look down on Yi Chen and begin targeting Yi Chen. If he did not take action, Zhang Li would definitely suspect Yi Chen. He might even bear a grudge against Yi Chen. Regardless of which one it was, Zhang Li would not help Yi Chen. And in the end, Yi Chen could only choose He Jin. When the time came, he could do whatever he wanted to Yi Chen. Unless Yi Chen no longer wanted to be an official, he could only endure it. This was because his father, He Jin, was a great general, and he was He Jin's only son. Yi Chen coldly glanced at He Xian before shouting, "How dare you? How dare you beat up an angel in broad daylight? Such evil deeds will be treated as treason." "You!" He Xian's expression changed when he heard this. He bellowed angrily. Chapter 278. He Xian never thought that Yi Chen would dare to say such a thing. This was simply slander. How could he rebel? However, what Yi Chen said about beating an angel was true. Although the third disease did not bring an imperial edict, he was still here to pass on a message. If he really pursued the matter, it would be a slap to Lu Hong's face. When he thought of this, He Xian felt unwell. He hurriedly shouted, he quickly shouted, "With this general's order, no one can stop me." Military order? You can ignore His Majesty just because of a military order? He Xian, how dare you? Yi Chen sneered and shouted, "I never said that." He Xian trembled as he pointed at Yi Chen and shouted angrily. Yi Chen sneered, waved his right hand and shouted, "Capture all the rebels. Take down all the rebels. If there's any resistance, kill without mercy." Yi Chen naturally would not kill He Xian before the great Han Empire collapsed. This was not desirable. However, it was not a problem to capture him. Moreover, once He Xian was captured, He Xian's little scheme would be ruined. In the end, He Xian would definitely be dealt with. As for how he would be dealt with, that was Lu Hong's problem. Yi Chen did not care, and it had nothing to do with Yi Chen. Of course, Yi Chen preferred to see He Xian resist. If He Xian dared to resist, then it would be even better. With so many eunuchs watching, there would be a reason to kill him. At that time, Zhang Li would definitely come forward to help. Lu Hong would also be able to explain because Yi Chen's reason was just and honorable. If there was someone to blame, then blame He Xian for being too stupid and arrogant. He even dared to beat up the eunuchs who passed on the message to Lu Hong. If Yi Chen really killed He Xian, then he would completely offend He Jin and Empress He. However, Yi Chen did not care about this at all. The moment Yi Chen gave the order, the Samsara Legion's soldiers instantly took out their shining spears and shouted in unison, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" Deafening battle cries rang out instantly. An extremely tyrannical killing intent also rose at this moment, rushing straight towards He Xian's subordinate. Hearing this, the 500 warriors brought by He Xian all had their facial expressions changed. They all shuddered at the same time. That killing intent was too terrifying. It was brutal and merciless, directly attacking their souls. They all thought of one thing at the same time, and that was if they dared to make the slightest move, there would only be one outcome: death. Whether it was He Xian or He Jin, no one could save them. At this moment, the soldiers of the Samsara Legion charged towards He Xian and his subordinates. When He Xian saw that the Samsara Legion soldiers were really going to arrest him, he flew into a rage and shouted, "Yi Chen! How dare you!" Yi Chen smiled coldly, and his violent aura instantly locked onto He Xian. He Xian's pupils constricted. At this moment, a clang sound was heard. Then, he saw a middle-aged man carrying a long sword appear beside He Xian in an instant, and then he carried He Xian away into the distance. "How dare you!" Yi Chen's eyes widened as he shouted angrily. At this moment, the Pegasus Little Gold instantly created 10 afterimages and chased after the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man carried He Xian very quickly, but no matter how fast he was, he could not outrun the Pegasus. After a few breaths, Yi Chen caught up with the middle-aged man who took He Xian away. Without thinking, he waved his right hand, and the God-Slayer instantly appeared. Then, he thrust his spear forward. It was a simple and violent spear, and it arrived in the blink of an eye. The middle-aged man's originally calm expression changed drastically. He hurriedly threw He Xian away and jumped, quickly dodging the attack. When Yi Chen saw this, his eyes immediately narrowed. He stopped the Pegasus Little Gold and looked at the middle-aged man. To be able to break free from the God-Slayer, he was definitely one of the best in the 3 kingdoms. And this was the reason why Yi Chen found it strange and did not continue to attack. This person was definitely a first-rate historical figure. Damn it, when did He Jin have such an awesome subordinate? Thinking of this, Yi Chen sized up the middle-aged man. At this moment, the middle-aged man bowed calmly and said, "Wang Yu of Liaodong greets General Ping Bei." Wang Yu, the best swordsman in the 3 kingdoms, so it was him. Thinking of this, Yi Chen's eyes widened, and he shouted, "Wang Yu, how dare you kidnap the traitor?" When Wang Yu heard this, he could not help but frown. He was about to speak when He Xian interrupted him. He Xian, who was thrown away by Wang Yu, stood up and roared at Yi Chen furiously. "Yi Chen, how dare you bully me? My father and aunt will not forgive you." He Xian had never suffered such a huge loss before, so how could he not be angry? "He Xian, you beat up an angel. This is an unforgivable crime. His Majesty will decide how to deal with you. If you know what's good for you, surrender obediently. Otherwise, only death awaits you." Yi Chen sneered and shouted, "You're despicable. Shameless. I'll go to the palace right now and report you." He Xian was even angrier when he heard this, and he roared with a ferocious expression. Yi Chen sneered and shouted, "You can try and see if I dare to kill you." He Xian, who was just about to leave, froze and quickly stopped in his tracks. He was afraid that Yi Chen would really kill him. He could feel the ruthlessness in Yi Chen's words. Moments later, He Xian looked at Wang Yu with a crazed expression and shouted, "Wang Yu, don't you want to be an official? Kill Yi Chen. Kill him for me, and I'll guarantee your safety. I'll even make you a high-ranking official." Wang Yu's expression changed when he heard this. It was because He Xian's words were harsh to the ears. It was true that he wanted to be an official, but being shouted out by He Xian, he lost a lot of face. Wang Yu glanced at He Xian, and then looked at Yi Chen. He clasped his hands and said, "General Pingbei, General He Xian was just being stubborn for a moment. Please forgive him." He Xian's expression darkened when he heard this. However, he restrained himself and did not say anything. He just glared at Wang Yu with hatred. Yi Chen glanced at He Xian, then looked at Wang Yu and asked, "Wang Yu, do you feel bad that you chose the wrong person to follow?" Wang Yu's expression changed when he heard this. Yi Chen smiled and said, "There are no swordsmen in the Samsara realm. There is no sword master in Samsara city right now. Wang Yu, do you understand what I mean?" "Yi Chen, you're despicable. Shameless. How dare you steal from the He family? Wang Yu, do it. Kill this traitor. If you kill him, my aunt and father will definitely make you a rank 2 martial officer." He Xian roared in horror. Yi Chen raised his eyebrows and looked at He Xian with disdain. He then looked at Wang Yu and said, "Have you heard of Tong Yuan? Have you heard of Tong Yuan? Soon, he will be taking up a post in Samsara city." Wang Yu was stunned when he heard this. Obviously, Wang Yu had heard of Tong Yuan. After a few breaths, Wang Yu bowed and said, "General Yi, General He Xian, I didn't mean to offend you. Please forgive me." Chapter 279. When Yi Chen heard this, his eyes narrowed, and a violent killing intent surged. At this moment, Yi Chen had completely dispelled the idea of subduing Wang Yu. For Yi Chen, it was normal for Wang Yu to want to be an official. Wang Yu didn't choose Yi Chen, and Yi Chen didn't care. He was just a super-historical figure, not a general. If he was a general, Yi Chen might have spent more effort. At this moment, Wang Yu was determined to stop Yi Chen from taking He Xian away in order to become an official. How could Yi Chen continue to be patient? Feeling Yi Chen's violent and merciless killing intent, Wang Yu's expression changed again and again. He had never met someone with such a terrifying killing intent, and now, he met one. A sense of extreme danger appeared in Wang Yu's heart. In the next second, Wang Yu's eyes widened, and the long sword in his right hand shook. A sharp sword intent instantly erupted, and then it met Yi Chen's aura head-on. "I implore General Yi to let this matter pass. This way, the great general and empress, he will be grateful to General Yi." Wang Yu looked at Yi Chen and said in a deep voice, "You truly think of yourself as someone important. To me, anyone who stands in my way is an enemy. There is only one word for an enemy." When Yi Chen said this, his eyes suddenly widened and he shouted, "You're not an enemy. Kill." Harumph! A thunderous neigh sounded from the Pegasus Shao Jin's mouth. Then, the Pegasus Shao Jin charged towards Wang Yu, leaving behind 10 afterimages. When Wang Yu saw Yi Chen charging over, and Little Gold carrying Yi Chen on his back, his expression changed again and again. Yi Chen's aura rose again and again the moment Little Gold charged over. In the blink of an eye, it reached a terrifying level. Domineering, unreasonable, and unparalleled. This was the feeling that Yi Chen gave Wang Yu. Yi Chen's aura was so ferocious that it was abnormal. How could this be? Wang Yu shouted in shock. He believed himself to be the #1 swordsman in the world. Even if he were to meet a fierce general who dominated the battlefield, he would not be afraid. But now, in front of Yi Chen, he actually felt like an ant. This feeling made Wang Yu tremble with fear. "Die!" Yi Chen roared as he thrust out the Godslayer in his right hand. As soon as Wang Yu thought of dodging, he abruptly stopped it. "I am the #1 swordsman in the world." Wang Yu's eyes suddenly widened, and then he stabbed out with his sword. A dang sound was heard. The Godslayer instantly struck Wang Yu's longsword. Wang Yu's expression instantly changed. His original plan was to neutralize the Godslayer's power and then stab the golden Pegasus with his sword. This way, he could guarantee that he would not be charged with the crime of attacking an official of the imperial court, and he could also take He Xian away. However, Wang Yu discovered to his horror that the power contained within the spear that was thrusting towards him was boundless. Wang Yu hurriedly threw away the long sword and jumped. However, Wang Yu, who was in midair, suddenly narrowed his eyes. The god slayer that was thrusting towards him changed direction the moment he jumped. How can it be so fast? Wang Yu shouted in horror. A poochie sound was heard. The god slayer pierced into Wang Yu's body without any hindrance, and then it pierced through Wang Yu's body. A bang sound was heard. Wang Yu's body instantly exploded into countless pieces under his gaze. The golden Pegasus immediately changed direction and dodged the body parts that filled the sky, as well as the internal organs and blood. At this moment, the system's notification sound was heard. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for killing a super-historical figure, Wang Yu. Due to his special identity, he is rewarded with 20 innate attribute points. When Yi Chen heard the system's notification sound, he could not help but raise his eyebrows. They were on the same side, but after killing him, there was no merit or reputation, just 20 innate attribute points. That was already not bad. Just as Yi Chen finished thinking, the world's notification sound was heard. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for killing a super-historical figure, Wang Yu. Due to his special identity, he is rewarded with 20 innate attribute points. The world's notification was repeated 3 times in a row, causing an uproar in the world channel. F***CK. Are you kidding me? He even killed a super-historical figure? Is Yi Chen crazy? F***CK. It seems like Wang Yu was the #1 swordsman during the Three Kingdoms period, but he was killed by Yi Chen just like that. Boss, Yi Chen is awesome, did you see that? He killed a super-historical figure just like that. Begging Yi Chen, no matter what level this historical figure is, as long as God Yi Chen is willing to sell it, I'm willing to pay any price. +1 +10086, F***CK, 10086, I can't even use my phone anymore. Asking for a high price, historical figure, third rate, second rate, first rate, super historical figure. As long as you have the goods, I'm willing to pay any price. Yi Chen glanced at the world channel, then stopped paying attention. As for selling the historical figure, Yi Chen did not even think about it. Not to mention that he could not sell it. Even if he could, Yi Chen would not sell the historical figure. If he sold the historical figure, he would only get money. It would not be as practical as the innate attribute point. General Yi. I'll go with you. I'll go with you. A terrified scream was suddenly heard. He Xianjing's eyes were wide open as he looked at Yi Chen in horror. He was frightened by Yi Chen's shot. He Xian knew how strong Wang Yu was. His swordsmanship was awesome. However, such a Wang Yu did not even manage to withstand a single move from Yi Chen. He was instantly killed, his body exploding into pieces. The more he thought about this, the more afraid and regretful He Xian was. He was afraid that he would be killed by Yi Chen and regretted coming here to find trouble with Yi Chen. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. He came here and found trouble with Yi Chen. He Xian naturally did not want to die. He did not dare to act pretentious in front of Yi Chen. At this moment, He Xian was only thinking about one thing. He would obediently let Yi Chen capture him to see Lu Hong. Only then could he live. If he dared to continue acting pretentious, he would definitely end up in a miserable state. Yi Chen glanced at He Xian, curled his lips in disdain, then rode his horse towards the place where Wang Yu died. When Yi Chen approached, he could not help feeling stunned. Wang Yu had actually only dropped one blueprint. Wang Yu was a swordsman, not a general, so it was understandable that he did not have a general's soul. But why did he drop a blueprint? Yi Chen was puzzled. He reached out his right hand and pulled the blueprint over. He Xian, who was standing on the side, saw the blueprint in Yi Chen's hand and his expression changed. At this moment, Yi Chen directly opened it and frowned. The blueprint was not the architectural blueprint Yi Chen imagined, nor was it a blueprint for weapons or armor. It was also not a secret recipe. This was a map. Where did this map come from? Why was there no system notification? As Yi Chen was thinking, He Xian's voice suddenly sounded. General Yi, this is the map of my He family's ancestral mausoleum. No wonder we couldn't find it before. It was this Wang Yu who dared to steal it. General Yi, please give him to me. My father will definitely thank General Yi. Chapter 280. When Yi Chen heard this, he narrowed his eyes and rode his horse to He Xian's side. The God Slayer pointed at He Xian and a murderous aura surged towards He Xian. He Xian, who had been forcing himself to remain calm, suddenly narrowed his eyes. His face turned deathly pale as he shrieked, "What are you talking about? That's the map of the underground palace. How could He Xian withstand Yi Chen's murderous aura?" As soon as he came into contact with it, he broke down. He didn't dare to continue hiding it. When Yi Chen heard this, he was stunned and then came to a realization. It turned out that Wang Yu was the one who issued the quest for the underground palace's map. Completing his quest would give him the map of the underground palace. However, I didn't accept Wang Yu's quest and killed him directly. That's why the map is in a sealed state. This underground palace's map was well hidden. It was actually in Wang Yu's hands. No one had ever obtained this in my previous life. Just as Yi Chen finished thinking, the system's notification sounded. Ding. Special activation conditions met. Congratulations to player Yi Chen for obtaining the map of the underground palace's secret territory. At this moment, the map of the underground palace's secret territory in Yi Chen's hands suddenly flashed and changed completely. The original mountains, rivers, and trees had disappeared and became a map of the underground palace. All kinds of buildings, roads, and traps were marked on it. After hearing the system's notification, Yi Chen looked at the map of the underground palace's secret territory and raised his eyebrows. The underground palace's secret territory was one of Yi Chen's goals. The 9 cauldrons of the ancient kingdom were there and Yi Chen had to obtain them at all costs. Now that the map of the underground palace's secret territory was out, the difficulty of the underground palace's secret territory for Yi Chen was naturally reduced by a lot. After all, in addition to the terracotta soldiers and generals, the underground palace's secret territory also had a large number of traps. With the map, he could completely avoid those traps. If He Xian didn't tell him where the map came from, it would probably remain sealed. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. He then looked at the terrified He Xian, bent down, grabbed He Xian's collar, and walked towards the teleportation array. After arriving at the teleportation portal, He Xian's subordinates were all captured by the Samsara Legion. The young eunuchs, who were originally too scared to move, started punching and kicking He Xian's guards one by one, shouting and screaming. Third Dezi, who had been knocked unconscious by He Xian, had already been woken up by the eunuchs. He was the one who had beaten the most ferociously. Like a madman, his hands turned into claws and scratched up and down, causing He Jin's household generals to have flowers blooming on their faces. Their bodies twitched and they howled miserably, because Third Dezi had used his true power on He Jin's family generals' crotches. It was very ferocious and fierce. Seeing that Yi Chen had returned with He Xian, Third Dezi immediately stopped. Then, he burst into tears and bowed to Yi Chen in an aggrieved manner. "General Yi, it's all thanks to you. If you didn't come, I would have been killed by this bastard." Hearing that, Yi Chen smiled faintly, then said, "He Xian publicly beat up an angel. This is no different from a rebellion. Since you are the victim, why don't you take him to His Majesty?" Hearing that, the young eunuch Third Dezi's eyes suddenly lit up. Then, he screamed, General Yi is correct. Only His Majesty can convict such a rebel. I'll take him to His Majesty right now. No. General Yi. Don't give me to this damn eunuch. I was wrong, I was wrong. Hearing that, He Xian's expression changed greatly and he hastily yelled. Yi Chen ignored He Xian and threw him to the ground. With a bang, He Xian was instantly thrown to the ground. Go. Capture He Xian. Seeing that, Third Disease's eyes suddenly widened. An ominous glint flashed in his eyes, then he screamed. The group of young eunuchs didn't say anything and swarmed forward. They even took off their robes and tied He Xian up tightly. Third Disease glared at He Xian, then looked at Yi Chen. He bowed with a smile and said, General Yi, it's really not suitable for me to take General Yi to the palace right now. I'll have Xia Shunzi lead the way. General Yi, please don't hold a grudge against me. No matter, no matter. If you have something to do, go ahead. Hearing that, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, then he said. Third Disease was beaten black and blue by He Xian. Actually, it was more suitable for him to go see Lu Hong. That way, he could let Lu Hong see how bold He Xian was. However, Third Disease didn't go. He clearly wanted to see Zhang Li first. After Zhang Li knew about this, it would be strange if Zhang Li didn't take the opportunity to attack He Jin in the court. Hearing Yi Chen's words, Third Disease was slightly taken aback. Then, he knowingly smiled and bowed again. Thank you for your understanding, General Yi. After Third Disease finished speaking, he looked at the young eunuch, he called Xia Shunzi and screamed, Lead the way for General Yi. If you dare to not do your best, I'll skin you alive. This servant doesn't dare. This servant doesn't dare. Xia Shunzi hurriedly bowed. Then, he ran to a warhorse and mounted it. At this moment, Yi Chen looked at the Samsara Legion and shouted, Withdraw 5 kilometers to the west and set up camp. Don't let anyone come close. Those who don't listen, kill. Those who dare to attack, kill. Yes, my lord. The Samsara Legion responded in unison. Then, they rode their horses to the west. General Yi, this servant will lead the way for you. Xia Shunzi looked at Yi Chen and said with a flattering expression. Yi Chen nodded and followed Xia Shunzi to Luoyang City. At the entrance of Luoyang City, Yi Chen was recognized by the sharp-eyed players as soon as he arrived. Damn! Yi Chen. That's Yi Chen. Damn! It really is Yi Chen. Why did he come to Luoyang again? Did you forget? Yi Chen quelled the Yuzhou rebellion and flattened Wu Huan. He must have come to Luoyang to receive his reward. He's already at grade 3. Why is he still getting promoted? Are you envious? Are you jealous? There's nothing we can do about it. Yi Chen is just too awesome. The discussions of the players were quickly heard by a native. Then, he looked at a player in surprise and asked, Brother, may I ask if the Yi Chen you're talking about is the great Han Empire's general who pacifies the north, Yi Chen? Who else could it be? The player who was questioned replied unhappily. Then, he was stunned and hurriedly looked at the native and said, What's your name? What's your name? I don't care what your name is. Pledge your allegiance to me. I'm the mayor of Carefree Town. I'm very powerful. When the players heard this, they immediately surrounded him and scrambled to send out invitations. Pledge your allegiance to me. Pledge your allegiance to me. As long as you pledge your allegiance to me, you'll have wine, meat, and beauties. Don't listen to them. Pledge your allegiance to me. Come to me. I'll make you a deputy mayor. Obviously, these players treated this native as a historical figure. Unfortunately, the native didn't care about these people. He pushed the players aside and ran to Yi Chen, who had dismounted from his horse, and bowed. Gao Shun pays his respects to General who pacifies the north. Chapter 281. Yi Chen naturally noticed the aboriginals the moment the players surrounded them. However, the native's attire wasn't outstanding, and he looked like an ordinary citizen. Yi Chen didn't know him, so he didn't pay much attention to him. However, right after that Aboriginal said those words, Yi Chen's eyes suddenly opened wide. Then, he looked to Gao Shun and asked, "You're Gao Shun?" Gao Shun was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect Yi Chen to have heard of his name. Gao Shun didn't dare to delay, so he quickly bowed and replied, "General, I'm Gao Shun." "Very good. Take a punch from me. Let's test your skills." Yi Chen smiled and said. Gao Shun was taken aback. His eyes widened as he bowed in surprise and said, "Yes, General." Gao Shun wasn't stupid. How could he not understand the meaning behind Yi Chen's words? This was a test for him. As long as he passed the test, he would be recognized by Yi Chen and be taken in as a subordinate. This was the main purpose of his visit to Yi Chen. Gosh! Gao Shun! It's Gao Shun! A player's eyes went blank when he heard the native introduce himself. Then, he shouted loudly. "Damn! Gao Shun, follow me! Follow me! I'll give you 10,000 gold and 1,000 beauties." A gamer sucked in a breath of cold air and shouted anxiously, "Follow me! Follow me! Gao Shun, as long as you follow me, I'll give you anything you want. Gao Shun, I'll let you be the deputy mayor of Galetown. I'll let you lead all the soldiers. As long as you're willing to follow me, I'll give you money and manpower." The gamers shouted crazily as they charged at Gao Shun. Yi Chen glanced at Xiaoshunzi, but before he could say anything, Xiaoshunzi cleverly yelled at the guards at the city gate in a sharp voice. "Are you blind? Can't you see that there's a rebel charging at General Pacifying North? Hurry up and capture him." As soon as Xiaoshunzi finished speaking, the guards at the city gate were all stunned. Then, they all picked up their weapons and chased the players away. Those who didn't listen to orders were stabbed with their spears. Yi Chen looked at the empty city gate and smiled. He then looked at Gao Shun and shouted, "Take this!" As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, he threw a punch at Gao Shun. Gao Shun originally had a calm expression on his face, but after seeing Yi Chen's simple and crude punch, his expression immediately changed and he hurriedly defended himself with all his might. Bang! A loud sound was heard. Yi Chen's fist landed on Gao Shun's arm. Tap, tap, tap. Several sounds rang out, and Gao Shun retreated more than 10 steps. General Yi is so powerful." The little eunuch, Xiaoshunzi's praise instantly sounded. Yi Chen smiled and then looked at the shocked and dejected Gao Shun. He said, "You're very good. The position of general in Samsara City is waiting for you. Are you willing to accept it?" Gao Shun, who was feeling sad because he didn't pass the test, was stunned when he heard this. He then looked at Yi Chen. He wanted to make sure that Yi Chen wasn't lying and wasn't teasing him. However, Gao Shun saw only admiration and sincerity in Yi Chen's eyes. After Gao Shun confirmed that Yi Chen was telling the truth, he was extremely touched. But soon, shame surged up. He then bowed and said, "General, I couldn't even take one strike from you. Don't underestimate yourself. The fact that I couldn't hurt you with 50% of my strength is enough to prove your strength." Yi Chen couldn't help but smile when he heard this. Then, he opened his mouth and said. After Yi Chen finished speaking, he grabbed the air, and the fine steel sword on the waist of the guard captain flew into Yi Chen's hand. Then, he flicked his finger. Clang! A sound was heard. The tip of the fine steel sword broke instantly and then flew toward the city wall with a whoosh sound. After a puff sound, it completely pierced into the city wall. Gao Shun was stunned when he saw this. Yi Chen's action undoubtedly told Gao Shun one thing. Yi Chen's martial strength was very strong, to a terrifying extent. After coming to his senses, Gao Shun immediately bowed and said, "Greetings, my lord." Ding. The first-class historical general, Gao Shun, wants to recognize you as his master. Do you accept? Of course, he would accept. Ding. Congratulations to player Yi Chen for obtaining the loyalty of the first-class historical general, Gao Shun. Hearing the system's prompt, Yi Chen laughed and quickly stepped forward to help Gao Shun up. Then, he said, Gao Shun, from today onwards, you will be the general of the Samsara city. Are you confident that you can command 100,000 soldiers? My lord! Gao Shun was stunned when he heard this. Then, he cried out in surprise. Don't underestimate yourself. Besides, only with talent can you secure your position. Do you think that you don't have this talent? Yi Chen glared at Gao Shun and then shouted. Hearing this, Gao Shun's heart was filled with warmth. His body also began to tremble slightly because he was moved. If Gao Shun didn't forcibly control himself, he would definitely be moved to tears. Trying hard to stabilize his beating heart, Gao Shun knelt on one knee with a bang and then shouted, Shun, I have confidence. Shun swears to the heavens that I will follow my lord until death. I will never betray you. If I violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy me. Gao Shun didn't expect that Yi Chen valued him so much and trusted him so much. Originally, Gao Shun thought that the position of general that Yi Chen mentioned at the beginning was a deputy general or a deputy general. Even so, this was enough to make Gao Shun very grateful. After all, he was just a follower and was given the position of general. Although it was the lowest position, it was still a general. It was enough to show that he was valued. Who would have thought that Yi Chen didn't give Gao Shun the position of deputy general or deputy general, but the position of the commander of 100,000 recruits? If this happened elsewhere, it would be impossible. But it really happened in Yi Chen's place. Only with 100% trust and 100% value could such a situation happen. Gao Shun was not stupid. He naturally understood this. It was because he understood that Gao Shun was so excited and moved. Then, he swore on the street that he would follow Yi Chen until death. Ding! Gao Shun's loyalty plus 10. Ding! Gao Shun's loyalty has reached 100. He has been promoted to loyal. Hearing the prompt of the system, Yi Chen laughed. Then, he helped Gao Shun, who was inexplicably grateful, up and said solemnly, Gao Shun, teleport to Samsara City now and find Military Counselor and Chancellor Guo Fengshao. Officially start commanding 100,000 recruit. Remember, speed up the training and don't slack off. Just find me Zhu for all your needs, no matter if it's food or equipment. Hearing this, Gao Shun nodded heavily. Then, he bowed and said, Yes, my lord. Yi Chen nodded with a smile. When he was about to say something, he suddenly saw Gao Shun's clothes. Then, he realized that Gao Shun's family was not very well off at the moment. Thinking of this, Yi Chen waved his right hand and 10 purple coins appeared in his hand instantly. Then, he handed the purple coins to Gao Shun. My lord, this. Gao Shun was stunned and said hurriedly, Take it. Take your family to Samsara City and settle them down. Then, you can train the soldiers with peace of mind. This is a military order. Yi Chen glared at Gao Shun and then shouted, You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.